Wednesday, June 9th, at 6 p.m. In case of emergency, there are 6 main exits on the meeting room. There are 4 on each side of the room, one on the left and one on the right. The 5th is out the back room door, right down the hallway to exit doors. The 6th one is out the back room door, left down the hall to the exit door on the right. Men and women's facilities is through the door on the left and the right. At this point, we have a sign-up sheet. If anybody would like to speak at the public comment, it's right here on the yellow. Please come up and sign your name. With that being said, Ian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. So the purpose of this meeting is to review the budget as proposed by the Budget and Financial Review Board to the Town Council. Throughout the evening, we're going to go through each of the departments. We'll talk about some of the difficult choices that the Budget and Financial Review Board had to make in crafting this proposal, and field questions by the Town Council as they deem appropriate. And then at the end of the evening is where the public comment section is. So we have an agenda item for that and the sign-up sheet. I want to start by thanking all the members of the board. It's been a long few months here. We've had a lot of meetings, many hours of analysis, both in the meeting and on our own time for a volunteer position. So thank you, each and every one of you, for all the hard work that you put into this budget. I'd like to thank the Town Council for trusting us to review this data, empowering us to make some of the hard decisions that we need to make in crafting a recommendation, for the attendance and participation that we had throughout the process. So thank each and every one of you. And thank you to the public for coming tonight and taking an interest in the budget as it's being proposed. Nothing tonight is final, so everything we review is a recommendation to the Town Council. They will take our recommendation and craft it as they see fit for a vote next Tuesday. It is next Tuesday, correct, sir? Thank you. So with that said, I'll start through some of the departments, and my intent is to work through the departments in order. One thing I will do is we have a large contingency related to the school department. I'm going to move that department towards the end of the department list because everything's interwoven. So any decision we make in any one point impacts all the other departments. So I want to make sure that we have kind of the full picture in place as we go through the departments. With that, sir, I'm going to start with departments 1 and 2, which are the legislative and policy departments.
Can I ask a general question before we start?
Yes, sir.
We got additional money from the state. You know, I don't know if the governor signed the budget or whatever. We're supposed to get more money from the state. How much is that?
You're referring to the schools, correct, or to the town?
I'm referring to the town. I know how much we got more from the schools. I'm talking about the town and whether it has to be used in particular categories.
Caitlin, I'm not aware of additional funding.
I know there was more education funding coming in, but I'm not aware of any more town funding.
So this is the final budget as far as revenues are concerned, other than the school department revenues?
That's what the governor proposed for.
So what the governor proposed is what has passed?
Oh,
The governor has not
the
passed.
governor has not
You're actually
passed
supposed to
the
vote on
budget.
that tonight.
But what was in his recommendation?
There is, or, sorry, there is or isn't?
There is.
Okay, so that's what I've been hearing in the calls I've been receiving. John, Mr. President, are there strings attached to it? I mean, it has to be used.
Not that I'm aware of, I don't know. David DeCoyan sent us an email saying there was more schools in town. So it all depends on what happens tonight. I don't think anything will change. Most of the time, the House passes it, the Senate
So I guess what we can say is we know where we're starting. We know there is a potential for additional revenue on both the town and the school side, but none of that is committed at this point. So there's two different votes that have to happen before that is actually solidified.
Well, actually, it's only one.
Is it only one vote?
Also,
Oh, they did, okay, thank you. Okay.
So it could change your vote next week if it's signed and there's more details.
Now, I guess something I'll ask, and this may be for Caitlin, if the town does receive additional funding, after we've already approved the budget, what happens and how do we revisit the appropriation of that funding? Does it immediately just go to the general fund for the year? Or do we have to reopen the budget vote?
that's a $64 question. I don't know.
Okay.
So there are a lot of, just like Wyndham right now, they've already passed their budget, and approved their budget before in May. And they didn't know that they were going to be increased. It's just, they don't, I've never seen us reopen it because of more funding from the state. But I guess that's something.
Well, I think
that I have to
we-
get a legal opinion about.
We should know by next Tuesday. So we'll know by 9 o'clock. He's got the clock running, he's got a.
So he has to sign it to the
governor.
Okay, I get it.
He'll call up the governor. So we'll know by next Tuesday, and so the council can make adjustments then if it wants to.
All right, thank you. All right, so do you have another question before we start going through some of the departments, or?
I also wanted to know if the salary increases that were approved in the collective bargaining agreements are reflected in your budget, or how much of them are, and if they are not all reflected, then are we at a potential deficit?
So any existing CBA out there is processed as the legal terms. As far as the collective bargaining agreements that are in flight right now, there is a reserve fund that is holding a potential amount of money for fulfilling where that may fall. Unfortunately, up through now, the budget board does not know what the contractual amount or the negotiated amount is there. But there is a contingency in place for that.
Well, we approved that last Tuesday, so that should be public information at this point.
So coming out of that meeting, one of the things I heard in that meeting, in watching the recording, is that it's not public comment yet because it hasn't been ratified by the, or as of then it hadn't been.
It
So
was ratified by the union members before we done it. So, final ratification, am I saying the right thing?
has it been duly executed at this point? Okay, so now it is public knowledge. So I still don't have those numbers. Is anyone here able to share what those numbers came back at? And that'll actually give us some of the guidance that we need on this.
So I think fire was 1.75, 1.75, 6 months, and police was 1.5, 1.5, is that correct?
But I guess the question is, maybe Caitlin will repeat,
6 months.
is that have you taken that bucket number, for lack of a better term, and applied it against that contingency account? Hopefully it is less than that amount, so then it's.
So what was recommended by your BFRB was not enough to cover that.
It wouldn't be, with the 6-month payments, with what they just said, it wouldn't be enough.
We wouldn't know that.
Right.
But I had, the town manager's budget that was presented to the BFRB had larger estimated numbers, and then it was reduced by the BFRB.
You know
So,
what the gap is?
It's 0.25.
Right, but the dollar amount is probably
We
the
have
more
that
important.
financial statement sheet that
Yeah.
summarized everything.
I
and
think
Caitlin
that,
can forward
I like
that
to
to
know the financial impact statement,
her.
but it would be a decision, now that you guys have approved your budget, it would be a decision on the town council side to adjust the budget to, make up for that shortfall that's not in current.
Yep. Caitlin, while we're continuing through, if you could find what that number is, the shortfall from the reserve account, Because that's a substantial,
Or it could be.
right. Not necessarily a substantial dollar amount, it could be, but it's part of the decision that needs to be made. So we need to understand what it looks like as we're discussing the different departments.
Well, I think the hope would be that the additional state aid would cover that,
Right.
so we wouldn't have a short. That remains to be seen.
But I think Ian's right, we just need to know what the number is,
Right.
it's above that account. 100,000, 200,000, or whatever it is.
It should be pretty close by hearing these numbers here and what we had appropriated to it, but again, we need to see what the actual numbers are. All set? Okay. So starting in with departments 001 and 002, which are the legislative and policy. So these departments hold different things like the codification of ordinances, tree warden, town surveyor, memberships of the town, like to the League of Cities and Towns, Chamber of Commerce. Within this overall budget, from the town manager's recommendation, there were a couple of primary modifications. One was to a miscellaneous account, and then another was to the codification of ordinances, and then finally the Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce. Setting aside capital expenses, because we'll talk capital expenses as we go. A lot of the decisions the budget board made and a lot of the topics we'll hit tonight are related to utilizing historic spend to set the new budget. So not having an increase for the sake of having an increase, but looking at what have we spent as an average over the last few years and aligning with that. So for instance, if we look at the Chamber of Commerce, this is just as an example, the budget request was for $1,500, but year over year, that has been spent at $1,340. So we're appropriating $1,340 to it because that's what the actual spend is for it. And that was the part of the decision made on a lot of the different lines as we went through the budget. We did reduce the miscellaneous account in this budget, and it's something we did across the board in the different departments. Any place there was a contingency account or a miscellaneous account, we reduced those numbers because the target is to have any spend be appropriated with an appropriate line item, not in a catch-all bucket. It gives more clarity and more visibility into where the tax dollars are going. Within this department, as you reviewed the packet, are there any questions about, again, setting capital expenditures aside because we'll talk to that as a standalone item. Within the general department, do you have any questions about this allocation? All right. So within Department 1 and 2, there are several lines of 8 different capital expense items. A lot of it ends up being things like culvert repair, watershed analyses, and then the Camp Shepherd and the lawsuit payments. We left most of these to the town manager's recommendation. So the Mountaindale Road culvert, the Deer Run Estates construction phase, the Stillwater watershed, all were retained at the recommended amount. The municipal capital deposit, we zeroed out. In a year where we're spending down all of our other funding, if we're drawing from our capital accounts, it doesn't necessarily make sense to add back to them. It's literally shifting it from one pocket to the next. The two that we did make some modifications to in this were the Camp Shepherd payment and the lawsuit payment. So both of those are internally loaned sources. So we're paying ourselves from a reserve account back into the general fund. Most of the time, and we do this across a lot of the different departments. We do this with different emergency vehicles and different items that we need to purchase. We'll loan ourselves the money out of the general fund. In this case, the Camp Shepherd and the lawsuit payments were constructed in a manner where we can pay ourselves back to a different rate than what the initial intent was. So we did use this as an opportunity to reduce those payments. Now, In the case of the lawsuit, we reduced it down to a $5,000 payment. That way, as we move forward, we can say, we know it's here, we know we have to pay it. Here's a token as we look to move forward. And then we did apply $45,818 to Camp Shepherd. This amount came at the very end of our budget setting process and essentially utilized the rest of the potential 4% levy. And part of the intent here is, for the town council, it's making the payment, but if you need to adjust funding from one source to another, this is an easy opportunity for you to modify without negatively impacting the other departments. Because again, there's not a legal mandate for the amount of money that you fund in this. So if you wanted to, originally we had it at $5,000 as well. So if you wanted to reduce it by $40,000 or even $45,000, you have the capability of doing that to fund any other areas where you need to fund. So for the departments 1 and 2 capital projects, do you have any questions? All right, moving on. Department 3, which is the Municipal Government Center. So this is a new department this year. This is a holding place for essentially the Overbrook Academy property. In this, there was the initial funding of $60,000. The budget board reduced it down to $39,000. In large part, this is a big wild card. We don't know what it's going to actually take to operate this facility for the year. So we reduced some of the spend, saying if this property isn't fully up and running, the electricity spend should be lowered. If it's not fully up and running, the heating should be lowered. The water utilization should be lower. So that's how we reduce some of the items. Same thing with building maintenance and supplies. When we go to invest in this property, we want to have a plan for utilizing it. So keeping kind of the lights dimmed, keeping the heat down, keeping the utilization down until we know how we're going to utilize it. And then once we know that, appropriating the appropriate funding to do any remodeling you may need to do, or any updates that you may need to do related to that. I will say, kind of as an addition, this property, what is not reflected in this line item, this is purely the operations. This doesn't include the incremental payment to having purchased the property. The purchase of that property did institute a large challenge for us this year because it's using about $800,000 of the tax levy in a new payment this year that wasn't here in the prior budget. So out of the roughly $2.4 million increase in the tax levy, $800,000 of that is attributed to making the loan payments for Overbrook Academy. That was one of the biggest complicating factors in the budget process this year.
Going back 1 second to municipal capital improvement legislative policy.
Yes, sir.
There's also an addition there for the capital reserve. Is that the appropriate time to talk about it?
We can talk to the school capital now if you'd like, or we can go through to it as part of the school.
Up to you, you're in charge.
Okay. Sure, we can talk to the school capital. So we did put $800,000 into the school's capital fund. So there were a few different conversations as part of the budget setting cycle. So prior to the budget cycle, the town council had worked with the school department on an agreement for their phase 2 funding for some of the remodels that they're doing. That comes with a commitment of $800,000 of capital spend. As part of the budget setting cycle, the town manager had initially worked with the school department to shift some of their spend from operating to capital for things like new computers, new curriculum. A lot of credit to Bob on this one. I really admired the critical thinking on this one and the creative thinking, because these aren't things that necessarily need to be there every year. So moving it to capital to avoid increasing the operating was a great move. However, between those two, you have the $800,000 and the $500,000. That's going to be $1.3 million of needed commitment to the capital for the schools. Unfortunately, as the town manager budget was crafted, only $200,000 was put into the capital. So the budget board had to make the decision to increase that as high as we could. So we went up to the $800,000 that has to be there. And in working with the school department, they do have money in their capital reserve fund within their savings. So they have the ability to make up. Now, it's going to almost completely drain what they have access to. So with that, they're going to hit their $1.3 million target, but have very little flexibility after the fact. Did that answer what you were looking
Yeah,
for?
I
or-
think, so you added 600 more, there was.
To what Bob had
200
put in, yes.
Yeah, okay, so now we're up to 800 that we're putting in, and there's already 500 plus in there, so.
It's in the savings for that,
Right,
yes.
so they will have enough money going forward. Because of, the fund keeps growing.
Yes.
Maybe the fund won't be down to zero because we'll be getting housing money coming in during the year as well.
Yeah, they'll have the additional funding coming in on that. Now, fingers crossed though, they don't run into a capital intensive problem, a boiler going out or needing to do some sort of major repair or replacement in an emergency fashion, because they're not gonna have the savings account in place to handle that. And that's one of the dangers of drawing our reserve funds down, both for the municipal as well as the educational reserve funds.
I have a question while
Yes,
you're
sir.
talking about the loan, and it's a question for Caitlin. My understanding is the purchase of Overbrook was done with a line of credit, X payment for 10 years or whatever it is, right? Is that included, now I don't have the fiscal 26, but is that going to be part of the current liabilities? Is that where it's going to be booked?
Debt, yeah, the
Okay.
debt service, that's what
Okay, so the number will change next year that I have on the sheet. And the second question is the interest payments that we have to make, I assume once a year, is it once a year, is it 12 months?
once a month.
That is being booked also to the short-term debt?
We have a debt service line item, and that's where all the principal and interest payments are.
And so Ken, when I was talking about that roughly $800,000, that was both the short-term and long-term, the interest and the principal payments.
So the interest is 300 grand a year?
I have to defer.
My understanding is the payment is 500, correct? And it's flat over the 10-year period.
It's about $24,000.
But I'm assuming the interest payment will go down as you're paying off the debt. So is the interest payment 300 grand? I was going to ask this, but is it 300 grand? But that will go down, obviously, as the mortgage Alice says. Okay.
So, sir, did I answer your school capital
Yes.
question? Okay. Any other questions on Department 3 for the Municipal Government Center? And Ken, that was a great clarification on where the costs are hitting. All right, Department 4 for the town manager. So this department starts some of our consistent messages that you'll hear. So some of the consistent messaging that you'll hear is any department that has a dues and conferences line item. I reviewed a report of the charges to that line item and kind of drew a line as to what was dues related, so like subscriptions, memberships, things like that, and what was conference travel and attendance of conferences. One of the difficult decisions the budget board made this year was we removed all conference funding. So in a year that we're counting paper clips, attending a conference is an extra. So we removed all of the conference travel out of the budget this year. The dues and the memberships are still there though. The other one, so this department did have the request for a contingency line that was zeroed out in favor of, again, identifying where charges should go in an appropriate manner, having a home for every purchase. And then this one does have non-CBA employees within it. And within the budget year for all town non-CBA employees, we allocated a 2.5% merit versus the 3% merit that was in there originally.
What line item is that, Ian?
So the merit is line 1, which is the salaries
Oh, I
and
see,
wages.
thank you, it's attached to that.
Yes. Now, that does impact a few different lines within it. No, that's all, yes. That also impacts the FICA and Social Security taxes. And the pension, yes. Thank you. Sorry, I had to look through what had changed, both the defined and the state pension things.
Yeah, I have a question of town manager.
Yes.
The seminars that they go to, do they get CEUs to maintain their licenses?
Yes.
So if we don't send them, that means
Well,
they don't get
some of them are gonna have to go, we're just gonna have to, if you go with this budget, we're just gonna have to find the money.
Well, and there are other ways you can do virtual sessions for education credits as well. You don't necessarily have to travel for it.
Ian, with the discrepancy in the raises for CBA and non-CBA employees, do you know the ratio of how many are CBA and how many are non? Is it like approximately?
Thank you, sir.
We have 26 non-union members out of just over 200 employees.
Okay, thank you.
Does that count the school?
No, the school has 300. So.
None?
No.
No,
The school has less than a dozen, I believe, non-CBA.
Is that true, Superintendent?
For non-union, we
Yeah.
have about, I'm gonna say about 20 or
20,
so
okay.
between our administrators and some folks at Central Office, but not that many.
So probably it's about 10% non-CBA in the town center. A little more,
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
more, 12.
Yeah.
And then within this one of the other changes, again, looking at travel. Travel was a consistent message across departments that we're looking to reduce how much we're on the road. Let's have virtual meetings, phone calls, emails, but let's save the pavement a little bit here. So that's the majority of the changes for this department. Any other questions on the town manager department? All right.
Just a quick question, I didn't get a chance to ask this at our meeting. Is the travel budget that he's talking about specifically for conferences, or is it a town employee that gets paid to go to Providence by mileage?
We have very few dollars to go to mileage.
Okay, so it's considered mileage, not travel? Okay, I didn't want to cut that out, because I don't think it's going to help anybody, even though it's probably not a big deal.
All right, so moving to Department 6, the town clerk. Again, following with the consistent messaging of the non-CBA and the dues and conferences, those were the two primary areas where the board made modifications. We did reduce the printing and reproduction down to 0. That's a department that has, for a couple of years, no actual charges, or a line item with no actual charges. So we did look at where are we spending our money versus where it's being appropriated to. And if it's not being utilized, we don't need to keep putting money in a bucket and not using it. So that was those were the changes for that department. Oh, and we did reduce the telephone line item in line with historic spend. And that's another area. A lot of the changes we made were in line with historic spend versus growing to grow. Any questions on the town clerk?
Just a quick one, Mr. Lynn's here, I know this is an election year, so you have different expenses because they go up and they go down, you're okay? They
Yes.
obviously want to make sure they're good.
Yes.
I think those increases would be in the board of canvassers.
Correct. Oh, that's right.
Usually, yes.
That's right. But the other things, do the notices or printing, does it come out of your department or all comes out of the board of canvassers?
Board of campuses.
Okay, well, then we'll wait.
All right, Department 7 for the municipal planner. This is a department that had a few modifications, again, similar concepts. The telephone in line with averages, the reduction of conference travel. There was a reduction in the office supplies and maintenance, again, down in line with historic spend. There was a large increase in that line item. The printing and reproduction was moved to historic alignments. Travel, publications and subscriptions. So this is a growing department. This is actually an area where we left funding even though there was no historic spend, because we know this is a growing department. So even though there's no prior spend on publications and subscriptions, no prior spend on travel, we're leaving the funding there knowing that there has to be an opportunity for it.
So we're adding a position in that department.
Yes, and nothing was modified as far as the head count there.
But yeah, the bulk of that increase for this department is that additional
Yes.
position.
So before we go on to the next one, I'm making a list of a bunch of recommendations that we're gonna talk about after budget season in terms of reporting and everything. And I think one of the things, while Ian mentioned it, is the telephone. The time and effort that it takes to apportion that to departments in a nonprofit organization is kind of overkill. I mean,
What is telephone?
It's
Is it like the Cox bill?
It's the
Phone system.
Okay.
We gotta make things easier, and, you know, especially for the town departments and obviously schools and different. To apportion, we don't do that. And our budget's larger, but we don't do that. We apportion it by division, and that's it. So it's 4 divisions, and that's what gets it. We don't go down to the department level. Because it's hard, I mean, if we're counting, and I hope you're not, Caitlin, if we're counting the number of phone calls or the number of minutes and apportioning by that, you understand, I understand, Bob, but you get where I'm going. I think we gotta move that to a centralized area.
What we will need to be careful of is there will be some lines in some areas where we do have to do that for state legal mandates.
Can you give me an example?
The MTP that I have to do every year. The MTP for the state I have to do every year, and there is the municipal transparency portal.
Okay.
So I have to do a report that breaks down certain things by certain departments.
Okay.
And one of them is
Specific.
utility.
Okay. All right, well, let's keep
Yeah,
talking about that.
pension, that kind of stuff is required by the state to be broken down by department. So it shows you the true cost of running that department.
Back to department. Because of grant money or just
It's a
something else?
state, it's a state regulation.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Well, it's mandated to be part of our annual budget.
No, I understand.
So it has to, if that is not done, then our audit is not in compliance.
Let's keep talking about that.
All right, moving forward to Department 8, the treasurer and tax collector. Again, the commonalities, the historic spend for the telephones, the removal of conferences, the averaging out and reduction for travel, the non-CBA modifications. But that's the bulk of the modifications for that department. And that's going to be consistent as we go through many of the departments. Those are the lines that change. Any questions on tax and treasurer? All right. For the tax assessor department, same topics. The one thing we did do new in this one actually has an education and training line item. And that's something in the future we're going to want to look at. There are some with tuition reimbursement lines, some education and training. If a conference covers continuing ed credits, we're going to want to look to how do we appropriately categorize that and fund it in a responsible manner. There are some departments that have these education and training line items or tuition reimbursement line items that aren't continuously or fully utilized. So we're putting money into this account, it's not being debited against, and then it just rolls into the general fund. We want to use the money we appropriate out to the departments and only appropriate what we need to use. Any questions on the tax assessor office? All right, moving forward to the Department 10, the Building and Zoning Department. Same messaging. The telephone we left where it was because we know the growth and the historic spend is coming up to where we left it. The dues and conferences were reduced. The non-CBA was modified as discussed. And that's the bulk of the changes in that department. Vehicles was reduced to 2,500 from the 3,000. And I mean, that's the extent that we've gone through this. A $500 change might not sound like a lot, but we did this over and over and over again in the budget, and it adds up over time. And again, anytime we do it, it's in alignment with historic spend and natural growth. So we did allow for some growth within the cost, but trying to keep it reined in as best we can. Any questions on the building department? All right. Department 11, the engineering department, same messaging. This is one when we were talking about tuition reimbursement in education. We did zero out the tuition reimbursement. It was in there previously for $10,000. Town manager had it for $5,000 this year. It hasn't been utilized to a significant level for a few years, so we did zero that out. I am completely in favor of tuition reimbursement. I've used it myself in the private sector. I encourage everybody to use it if you have the opportunity to. It's a great way to improve your skill sets. But I don't want tuition reimbursement artificially inflating our budgets to then roll into the general fund. It's really easy. We have a mechanism for approving this. If an employee uses it, it's a very simple request to the town council to approve the payment of the, or the increase in the appropriation for that department's line item. So rather than upfront allocating an unknown amount, we're going to look to have the individual approvals on that. Now, in a future year, as Mr. Souza was saying earlier, we have some reviews we want to do. I'm in favor of creating a reserve fund specific to education and tuition reimbursement. That way we can have a fixed amount go into this fund every year, have a target dollar amount to sit in this account. And we can draw down from it and we replenish it when we need to, but it doesn't just roll into the general fund if it's not utilized. That way we can support our town employees, but not have these kind of little extra slush funds. Any questions on the engineering department? All right. Department 12, the information technology department. So this is a new department for us. It's much overdue. We've definitely needed to do this for a while, so a lot of credit to the town manager and the finance director for taking this step. It's really hard to create a new department, especially when you're pulling pieces out of so many other departments, to identify how much do we appropriate to this new department. This department does reflect some incremental appropriation within the town, because the IT director does have needs that haven't been addressed for a long time, and our cybersecurity posture needs addressing. We need to make sure that we're stable in our IT systems. So the creation of the department is great. We have some funded items and some unfunded items in this. So, for instance, this year, the fire department computer budget has moved into the department out of the fire department, but the police has not. So that's one step we'll be looking to take next year as we continue moving forward. And then we'll look to some of the line items within this department, but the creation of this department and the funding of it is more than what he had previously. It may not be as much as he'd like, but we can get there.
And just to enunciate on that, that was one of the departments I took a really hard look at, because I wanted to see it almost be a zero-sum game, because we were moving the deck chairs around. David does a great job, and I agree with Ian that you probably haven't watched this, because it was really nobody, it wasn't really taken over by someone with that type of expertise. So I kind of said, let's just do it this year, but I think our chair is right, that we're going to have to really take a hard look every year about what we need to make sure that we have the correct technology. And maybe we got to start using more capital money, rather than, especially if it's more than 2 or 3 years of life, to do that. So it was a tough one, but I know we did the right thing.
Well, this one looks like a big drop down, like 60,000 from what the town manager recommended. So can you explain, like maintenance and support and fire computers seem to be the biggest ones? Can you explain what that means?
So within the overall budget on this one, we worked hard to try to trace back every source of spend in this department to the other departments. And we couldn't find everything. So we could find 30,000 in the fire department, but we couldn't find the full 53,000. Within maintenance and support, that's actually one of a partial reduction. So previously, things like maintenance and support, the tech support, a lot of these actually sat within the larger hardware software category. So hardware and software was left where it was requested, and then these other ones were kind of parsed out from it. They were all buried under one line item, and then now it's split out. So it's trying to find that path forward without too much like incremental growth in 1 year.
I think the other issue that we've got to really take a look at is we don't know, we don't know.
Right.
And this happens in every company, so it's not just the town of Smithfield. Somebody who works in Department XYZ decides to go out and buy a license for a software package. So the IT people don't know. There's obviously purchasing issues, but there's also security issues. And I think we got to rein that in a little bit. And I know David is the person to do this, I really do. But that's what Ian's saying, is we didn't really have the detailed data on the number of licenses, the number of seats of licenses and things of this nature to really make a good decision, at least a reasonable decision on X times Y equals.
Well, and part of that's because it's a brand new department.
Well,
And
and it's-
David has the capacity and the capabilities, and he has some of that data already. He does have a software audit that.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that
Yes.
he did provide this board
Yes.
a software audit that had the price of how much the software cost and the annual cost.
Right.
So when he did this budget, he added up every single item and put in how much that software audit totaled. So when he did his department recommendation, and then the board was given that audit, which is done for our auditors every year as part of the annual audit. So that was provided.
And with all due respect to the town manager, this happens in every company. It just kind of breaks down a little bit, and this was before you, that people buy software, you don't know what it is.
Yeah, so since
we're reining it in.
Yeah, since Dave has taken over, everything has to be approved, regardless of what we get, computer-wise and software-wise. It has to be, final approval comes from him before it goes to purchasing.
Any other questions on the IT department? All right. Moving forward to Department 16, which is the Human Services Senior Center. So this department is the merger of the original Human Services Department and the original Senior Center Department. So the Senior Center was moved into Department 16. Previously it was, I want to say like 74 or something like that. Within this department, so again, there's the consistent story, the dues and conferences, the non-CBA modifications. In this case, we did reduce some of the other items. The senior center programs is a newer it's a new appropriation as of last year. Through the mid-year point, there was no spend within that line item. There was a $6,000 request for this new year. We did reduce it down to $3,000. We want spend, we want to support the seniors in the town, but we also need to understand what are these programs, what's the benefit to the seniors of the programs that we're going to be standing up. So we want to see growth in this area to support everyone within the town, but we need to understand better, like how are we benefiting the seniors directly? And what's the real spend look like? Because again, there's no real spend documented in this. The same thing, and a similar comment related to the bottom line, which is the new Human Services Outreach line item within this department. So we are putting $1,000 into that one versus the request of $1,500. So we know there's a need to invest in this and to support the community, but we don't know the extent of that need and how it's going to be utilized. Across the other items, there was a reduction in the vehicle maintenance to get in alignment with historic spend, and a reduction in the office supplies as a level funding. So a lot of what we did with office supplies is we level funded office supplies year over year, or reduced it to historic spend, whichever was the lower amount. Any questions on the Senior Center Human Services Department? All right, moving forward to Department 20, the Town Hall. This department saw changes. One of the primary changes in this one was the capital expenditures. So there was a capital expense request for $35,000 to paint the town hall. Now, if I remember right, that was the front fascia of the town hall, not the entire surrounding building. The guidance for the board and the thought behind zeroing this line item out is we don't know what's happening with Town Hall and with Overbrook Academy. So there's a lot of discussion points as to what do we do with Overbrook, and different talking points have been, do we move some of our facilities and our operations to the Overbrook facility? While we, again, whether we do or don't, while we figure it out, I want to kind of hold back on spending and various improvements in the facility until we know there's the long-term return for it. It doesn't make sense to put a paint job on a building that you're going to turn around and sell the prior year. Not saying we're selling Town Hall, but you understand the reasoning behind not doing the paint job right now. That was and then the other modification was in building maintenance and supplies. Again, as we look to move, as we look to adjust our operations, what does it look like and how can we pare back the investments within the existing infrastructure? Any questions on the Town Hall department? All right. Department 21, system-wide municipal obligations. So within this department, the primary modification from the Budget and Financial Review Board was related to the reserve accounts for the outstanding CBA negotiations. So we had appropriated less than the original target, and we know that the final number that is coming back is somewhere between the request and the appropriation. And we need to ultimately identify, Caitlin, do you?
So I had, for the retirement merit, the town manager had requested $200,000, the BFRB brought it down to $125,000. And as of right now, we need $185,51 to cover the increase on the CBA.
Both of this one.
Yes. And for the merit increase, the town manager, it was a preliminary number of $460,482. The BFRB brought it down to $375,000. Currently, we need $842,000 to cover that.
For which line item was that?
The merit. Because that doesn't just include the salary increases, it also includes any accreditation increases, any increases in,
We need, so,
Need 800 for that?
so account number ending in 0926, Caitlin, account 0926, the mayor reserve, you're saying
yeah,
how
because
much?
it includes, the fiscal impact statement that was done. The increase is salary plus some of the CBAs had increases in accreditation, increases in different types of stipends. So that is all included in that,
And that number, say that again.
$842,841,960.
Additional to the recommendation?
No, total.
No,
Total.
total, not in addition.
Okay.
So I had estimated about half that when I did 460, 182. And that was worked out to 370.
Okay, well, the accreditation, that's because they moved up to a different thing, and so they don't have to get a CBA adjustment, correct?
So they keep a very high standard accreditation at the police, and they receive a stipend.
Understand. So, but wouldn't that be the same, did it go up in the contract? Okay, all right, so there is an, I was gonna say, because it would be the same as before. So, because this has been a discussion for the past week or so, week or two, since the town council meeting, so we need an additional 842?
Not an additional.
Okay, that's, I came in.
You can do the 375, but you need a total of 847.
Yeah, 467. And then what was that, 185,000 that you said before?
185,551
For which line item is
for
that?
the retirement.
For 136?
So it's about 530,000 that we need beyond the appropriation. Caitlin, rough numbers, it's about 530,000.
So what was in the secret account that was holding this, how much was in that contingency?
Reserve account.
The reserve account?
Are you saying prior to our discussions?
Correct.
The town manager had asked for 464.82.
So it's really only the difference?
No, Ken, there's no existing account.
There's no existing.
It's starting with zero and then we're appropriating to it.
There is, because we talked about that during the meeting. There is an account, I don't know what the account number is, it is in there as a contingency per
Right, it's the merit
CBA.
reserve
No, the other one,
account.
there's
And a
another,
retirement
the
reserve.
labor
account.
one.
That's the merit reserve account. That's where we put.
So which account had the quote contingency? I'm just gonna use that word for the CBA potential.
The merit reserve.
So how much is all of that?
Was the merit reserve
Didn't sound
zero
very good,
before
yeah.
this budget discussion? Or was there a prior?
There's no,
Okay.
there's no, it used to be called an escrow, remember?
Yes,
They
I
used to do
remember.
that,
I
and
remember.
it's technically, it's not an escrow, we don't just keep building up money. So you guys had decided you wanted to call it a reserve, so that's what we call it. But there's no, we don't keep, there's nothing in there. It's an annual appropriation, and if it's not used, then it goes back into the general fund.
Ian, you was thinking the same thing, because this was a discussion in our meeting, I know it was. So that's what I'm trying to look for, is where that account is.
And the system-wide municipal obligation, 021,
So
I think.
02021? The next one. No, so which one is it, which account number is it?
0926.
Okay, so that is the number that was put into reserve, so to speak, with
Well-
the pending CBA. So that,
So I guess the
don't know,
question,
Maureen, could you give me the number what was the number we finally agreed to?
375.
Okay, so it's the same as here. All right, so we are only on the hook for between 375 and 530, or am I just
well,
missing?
530 is what we're short in the appropriation.
Understand.
Now, Caitlin, a question. Last year, we had put $100,000 into this. So that 100,000 was not retained, it was rolled into the general fund?
Yeah, but it was used for, like, there were merit increases, there was a new hire that started at a higher rate
Okay.
than what was there, we used that.
We may not have all
Yeah. Yeah.
They get transferred.
Is my math off? I'm getting 602. You have 530?
I mean, I was just,
Okay, that just went, okay.
because it's 470.
You're the math guy, Ian?
No, I'm just, it's roughly 475 for merit and roughly 60 for retirement, so
So it's about 530.
it's about 530,
Oh, okay.
And that's
I
the
thought it was
shortfall.
135 for retirement.
185.
185,551 is what we need. What they
It's a 60 shortfall.
adopted was 125.
Okay,
It's
thank
a
you.
60, roughly a $60,000 short.
Thank you.
So the bottom line is,
I
as
knew
of
I
right
was
this moment, we're $530,000 under in our
Correct.
entire budget.
Yes.
Okay,
That's a big number.
That's a
Big
huge
number.
number.
Right? I hope everyone in the room is understanding this, we gotta make that number up. That's what you're looking to see, is
Yeah.
State aid's 148.
48.
100.
Oh, the additional state aid is 148?
And assuming there's no strings attached to it, so we're still talking about 400 grand under. That's what's up to the local.
Total budget.
I don't think that's the way to change it.
Nearly.
Excellent. Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Ron, what was the number again?
148,
It was 148 change.
50 cents.
All right, so, I mean, town council, that's
Non-school, right?
That's non-school aid.
Non-school aid, that's just,
That's school.
Just-
Only extra money, we're only extra money
we're only getting extra money for the school department.
for the school.
well, just,
Well,
the president was saying different earlier.
Yeah, but it's 148 in addition to the funds they already got. But that's the only extra money.
So there wasn't two
We
sets of money?
can't factor that 140 into the shortfall.
No, we can't, not yet.
We should.
School.
Right.
There's no other type of state aid.
Yeah,
It's a wait and see.
it is. All right. So, I mean, so we know there's a structural challenge for you at this point. We now know there's a structural challenge for you.
Thank
You're welcome. Now, there are areas where we can, but as I called out up front, there's the 45,000 in the Camp Shepherd payment. It doesn't take care of all of it, but it starts moving the needle, and we can review some other opportunities as we go through.
Unless, John, you want the six of us to leave and you can figure out what to do at 5:30.
Easy for me.
All right, moving forward to Department 31 for the fire department. So within the fire department, the primary difference, there were some slight modifications to a couple line items like office supplies, dues and conferences, but the primary difference in the fire department was we started out with a request for 7 incremental headcount. As we went through the budget process, that was brought down to 0. So they were looking for 7 probationary privates, and we had to move it down to 0. As you can see, we have no room in the budget as it sits
There
anyway.
were 7 vacancies.
Were those were those people occupying those positions, were they the safer grant positions, or where did the 7, number 7 come from?
It was part of the total staff. So there was vacancies in the department.
Right, okay.
That's what they did.
4 was safer grants, right?
Huh?
4 was safer grants. Or
No,
was all
over
7
time, there
safer
was
grants?
more than that.
Seven?
2 safer.
And most of this budget is driven by salaries, as you can see, because we're at a shortfall already. And it continues to grow each year based on contracts and benefits and longevity. So the budget has a burden with salaries. But we need salaries and we need people to run the town, but we have to keep an eye on it.
All right, so that's the primary change within the fire department. There were some capital requests within the fire department. We did not modify the repayments. Let me just double check that statement on the capital tab here. Yeah, most of the capital requests for the fire department was repayments of items, but anything that is existing, it's coming out of the rescue bill. We followed, I'm just double checking, yes, we followed the town manager's recommendation on all of the capital requests with the intent that it's all funded from rescue bill. Any questions on the fire department?
You added money to overtime as well, right?
We did. So as part of reducing the, and not approving the 7 headcount, we added a substantial number to the overtime budget there. So, the fire
With
department.
historical spend, right, to mirror.
To-
Or as close as you
We
could.
couldn't even get all the way
Yeah.
to the historic spend, and that's actually been a challenge with the fire department, is some just very, very large overtime spend for a long history now. Now, at
Well, the
Chief
history has
Kane.
been, they've been overspending their budget on overtime, big time.
Right.
I don't know how they can do that without coming back to the council. The council appropriates the money, and that's it. You're not supposed to spend any more than that, and these have been huge, huge overspending, so I don't know how they can do that, but I hope that will not continue, because we should be coming back to the council, right, because it's an appropriation, and you can't go over that.
Now, Chief Keen did tell us that he has a plan in place, and he made some changes to the staffing model that should help address some of the overtime spend.
24-hour shifts.
Right. The challenge is, it started a chunk of the way through the fiscal year. So we don't know what the true fiscal year impact is going to be on that yet. And we wanted to try to alleviate some of the really just missing money, the money that just goes missing by the overspend, without visibility to it by increasing the overtime.
Yeah, I agree with, if they need more overtime money, this is the time to ask for it, not putting in a small amount and then blowing the budget. I mean,
That's not what
You can't really do that.
The problem is,
Go
with
ahead and
police and
explain it.
fire is injuries, and when you get the injuries, unfortunately, you have to replace them with overtime. But also, when you start balancing out all the overtime line items in a savings in money for people we don't replace in healthcare benefits, we don't have to spend, it reduces some of that. So, we have had a couple of a couple of years back, several people are injured, unfortunately, that's been one of the worst case scenario. But I know the overtime in the last 2 years has been less, has come down.
So it's coming down, so is it always offset by the reductions in salaries, or does it?
Well, it does, because it's the entire fire department budget, so if the overtime goes up 100,000 and we save 120 in salaries, that means that's the balance.
And I will say, overtime is a powerful tool to a department manager to be able to control costs versus adding incremental headcount. It's valuable, but you want to be careful. There's a balance of safety of the firefighter, the police officer, the employee, in running them ragged with so much overtime versus hiring that extra person. So there is a balance there. I trust our department heads to really identify and advocate for that balance. But we also do need to, as we do add headcount, which has happened over the years, we do need to bring that overtime number as under control as possible. I'm not the expert to say what control looks like in the fire department or police department overtimes, but I can definitely see that the budget has been dramatically just blown away. They've gone over the budget target year after year, which is part of why we increased that budget, just knowing the spend's gonna be there. And we can't not staff our fire department, so.
And the runs have increased every year.
Chris, okay.
Quick question. So the person gets injured, so I'm assuming it's either workers' comp and or disability insurance.
Yes, so when,
So we don't pay for their salary, I'm assuming it's.
there's a state law that covers police and fire in Rhode Island, so basically, they get their salary, and then we have an insurance plan through VFIS Insurance, where we get $800 a week after they're out for 30 days, and we put that back into the overtime fund to help offset some of that.
That's what I was gonna ask, because we're not paying for the whole committee, they don't pay for any of it, it's gotta go somewhere, either back to one of the accounts, I don't care which one.
Yeah, it goes back into
Got
the
a contract.
overtime.
There's an IOD statute, right?
We also looked at staffing with other towns comparable to Smithfield and made comparisons with that as well. So what we did was increase the overtime to a reasonable number, which they have been using for the longest time. almost 500% more than what they requested. And that was the
Yeah,
compromise.
it's requested it. Wait.
$200
Very
million.
good. Yeah,
It's,
Yeah, nowhere near what ends up happening, so.
Right. And that's part of the attempt to offset.
but the new model will help working 24 hours as opposed to working 12 hours.
So with those topics, any other questions on the fire department? All right, with the Department 32, the police department, there were very little modifications. Couple of changes related to things like vehicle maintenance, keeping things in line with historic spend, tires and tubes. Again, any modification was to keep it in line with historic spend on different line items, with the exception of the dues and conferences and the non-CBA employees. One item that I did change as the board that we did modify is the special services DARE request. We went from a $10,000 appropriation to a $7,500 appropriation recommendation. A large chunk of that was to service coloring books for the DARE program, hiring an artist for that, and there are some creative community engagements that the budget board spoke with the chief about to help offset additional costs while still meeting the goals of the program and of his department. Actually, a great thing I did, I took a picture of Gracie and fed it into an AI bot and said, create a coloring book page targeted to a 6-year-old, and out came this pretty amazing coloring page ready to use. So we have some opportunities to either use technology, partner with local businesses and institutions, and see what we can do to generate that, not on the back of additional tax dollars.
Just quickly, just as a comparison, I'm going to be passing this out a little later on, for public safety, which is all lumped into one, the changes from year to year over the last 10 years has gone from negative 33% to a positive 17%. It's kind of all over the place, which makes it very difficult to budget. You're going to see this when we pass this out. It's a wide variation.
The police department did have a couple of capital requests. They were repayments that we left alone. Any other questions on the police department? Okay, Department 33, animal control. Animal control saw a slight reduction related to vehicle maintenance, supplies and materials, again, keeping things in line with historic spend. Nothing monumental in the movements up there.
Does that change again with the free time?
That's a great question. We have not seen our costs go down as a relation to that expansion. So when we look at the budget this year, it's a few percent higher than the year prior, which was a few percent, like 3-4% higher than the year prior to that. We're not seeing a reduction in that engagement. It is something that I want to explore in the off-budget season to see where the spend requests are coming from. All right, Department 34, the Emergency Management Agency. In this area, it was the non-CBA modifications, education and training, were a couple of the primary items. There is a new take that we're looking at for the budget board. So one of our common themes is moving away from single year budgeting and creating reserve accounts. So if we want to have a clothing account or something that we may want to build for a few years running, we're working on creating reserve accounts. At the request of the town manager, there was a town-wide emergency line item created this year. The budget board rather than having that be a single year revolving item, we've requested that be a reserve fund, so it builds over time. So we can set a target and say we want to have 50,000 or 100,000 available for a townwide emergency spend. We can build it year over year. We can add 10,000 a year and have it grow over time. And then once we hit whatever our target is, we don't have to keep funding it. We let it sit. When we draw down on it, we can then the next year increase the funding back to bring it back to target. So the request for that townwide emergency line item, we're recommending be a proper reserve fund. And we're looking at $10,000 for that initial seed funding. As a part of that, we're looking to move the staff clothing and PPE into that fund spend. So rather than having the staff clothing be its own individual line item that may or may not get fully utilized in any year, and if we do need more in any particular year, we have the capability of doing that because it's part of the larger reserve fund. Any questions on the EMA?
Are these interest-bearing accounts typically the reserve funds?
All our money,
Okay.
And most,
everything in the bank here is interest.
But most of these are first, the reserve fund are their own checking account, it's just what you call it, account where it's on paper, you can see.
so within our overall yearly revenue, one of the line items that we recognize for revenue is anticipated interest. So all of these different departments ultimately sit in one big bucket of money that's in the various bank accounts that we have, accruing interest that we recognize at the higher level back into the town versus into individual reserve accounts. Caitlin,
That's
accurate
in the
statement?
revenue, that's in the revenue tab
Yes.
on this budget? Oh, I see it, yes.
I'm going to pause for just a moment. All right, so moving forward to Department 41 for Public Works. So Public Works is divided across a few different departments with different specialties and focus depending on the department. This is the larger general Public Works department. Within the modifications are, again, the non-CBA, pulling back on overtime a little bit, trying to kind of show some restraint in the amount of overtime that we're utilizing as we can or need to. Clothing rental was reduced more in line with historic spend. There is a change this year where we're splitting a line item up at the request of the director. Previously there was this larger special services, engineering, signs, trees, and there was a request to break it apart so that we could more accurately see what was happening with tree removal, sign spend. So the total amount there aligns with the overall department request, if I remember correctly. Here, let me just make sure. Yes. And then working our way down through the common talking points, the dues and conferences, a few reductions in things like office supplies. This department saw a new line item last year related to Camp Shepherd maintenance. And we're pulling back on that a little bit this year. So it was funded to $10,000 last year. We're recommending $5,000 for Camp Shepherd maintenance items this year. Any questions on the larger? Yes.
What was the spend last year on that?
Right, so through December 31st, the halfway mark of the year, which is the budget line that we get, there was $0 attributed to that line item. Caitlin, do you know, in the March update, were there any additional? Thank you.
While she was looking at that, Ian, this snow removal item, department requested 30,000, and then town manager said 250, and then it went down to 200. Was that just a mistake?
That was a mistake on my end. I flip-flopped the road material
Yes.
in the snow,
Oh, I see that now, okay.
so I had to flip it back.
Okay, perfect.
No
So,
snow.
no,
That's what I'm thinking.
got it.
Yeah, so we're,
That was just a typo. Yeah, okay.
yeah. All right. Within the, let me double check capital for this. So each of the capital requests were processed and approved, recommended by the department as requested, as the town manager had requested. So we didn't make any changes to the town manager's requests on that. The recommendation is that they are all funded through the capital improvement fund. So moving on to departments, 42. Department 40. Yes, so this is one of the areas that last fiscal year, the budget board kind of drew a line in the sand and said, we need to continue maintaining our roads. It costs roughly $1.1 million just to keep the same overall general score or grade for our roads in the town. So, and any dollar we spend less than that, the roads will be kind of taking an overall step back. Now, an individual road will be improved. There's always going to be a paving project and improvements, but while that one will go up in grade, other roads will continue stepping down in grade, deteriorating over time. So last year, the budget board just said 1.1 million is the baseline that we really need to appropriate to the resurfacing kind of moving forward. And then when we can appropriate more, that'll be a discussion, but that's not the line this year. This is one of the areas as we need to find funding for some of the merit. This is probably one of your easier line items to modify. Now, again, it's a trade-off. So as we take from this line item, we're going to have to repay that later through, we're going to have to improve the roads at some point. We're going to have to repair them as we get there. However, the infrastructure and the public works, the road paving is one of those items that can be deferred in the event that you need to defer it. So you start talking about your schools, you start talking about your public safety, those are more difficult to defer. You have an immediate need and a longer term repayment on those. Your public works, you can kind of make the choice to reduce the funding this year and make it up in a future year. And my direct recommendation is, as we look to making up that shortfall that we identified this evening, this is probably the primary area that we need to look at to utilize. Understand where the state comes back with any additional funding, and then as we move from that, this is probably the single largest bucket for you to be able to reduce the Camp Shepherd payment, pull some of the other strings that we can, but this is your primary area.
So, just to interject, because you did a good job explaining it to the town council and everybody else in the room, and my colleagues know this, the question I always ask DPW and every other department, if you had X dollars, what would you do with it? With all due respect, this was the toughest year. I didn't ask that question. And there was just nothing, there was no place to go. So just so you understand, we really want to make roads better, and that's a great example. But we didn't ask Gene this year because, I know I didn't, because what we're talking about for the last couple of hours. So we're trying. We just have to keep trying.
Any other questions on the 42, which is the resurfacing, drainage, sidewalk improvements? All right. Department 43, another public works, it's hydrant services and street lights. Uh,
Caitlin has a number on the Kim Shepherd expenditure.
$265.
Against a $10,000 appropriation, so that's,
If there has been signs purchased, it comes under the sign. So I know there has been stuff done at Camp Shepherd.
Right.
It just might not be, different, yes, different buckets. Because it is under the DPW department.
but this is a great example of where we're looking to try to identify historic spend and bring appropriations to that. Because last year, there was $10,000 appropriated to Camp Shepherd. If we're only at $265 on the year, we have a lot of money that is very quickly gonna roll to the general fund. Now, so we still have the money. It's not like we're losing it, but it's not being utilized for the intended purpose, which then could have been reappropriated within the last budget to a different line item, maybe some overtime that was exceeded, or another line item that was reduced because we were trying to have some cost
I
control.
think for this year, a lot of the under expenditures for the DPW will cover snow removal.
Correct. I purposely did not allow expenditure of $10,000 because of the snow removal costs, so that was a trade-off. But this year, we are gonna put some docks in, because the docks were down there, were dangerous, they had to be removed, and a lot of people use it for fishing, so, and they're not too expensive, actually, so we are gonna put some new docks down there for people to fish.
Now, as a point of order on that, and for kind of covering like the discussion that we started with earlier, that we need to make sure that we go to the town council with any overages on any line so that we can get the approval to reappropriate that money to, say, snow removal where we know we're gonna be going over. The town council is the group that has to approve any line, so it's not the department as a whole, it's any individual sub-account within a department needs town council approval to go over the appropriated funding.
No, if it's within, I think in the charter says if it's within a department, they need to be notified, not approved. If we are using money from one department to another department, they need to approve that.
Right. We don't transfer funds.
But this brings up an important point that I hope we're going to talk about post-July. If you start charging office supplies to the electricity account, you'll never know what you spend on electricity.
No,
We talked about this.
Yeah, but we're not doing that, things are overspent, and
Right,
like the
I
snow
understand.
removal, that account was overspent because of that year, but
I understand, but it has been done before, we kind of did it that way. And we've talked about this before in the meeting, is that we gotta hold true to the description of the account, because otherwise you'll never understand how you spend it.
Well, I mean, in this case, the overage and snow removal is in the red.
Correct, and that's,
But I had to make a decision that we're spending too much money, we're not gonna do certain things to keep that whole budget within reason. So we don't necessarily, we're not transferring anything, we're holding off on spending, so the bottom line for that department doesn't get over the entire budget.
you're doing the right thing, but it goes back to what I just said, you can't take a bottled water bill and charge it to.
Yeah,
That's
we go
what
in the
I'm-
red, we go in the red
I
on the line.
understand. You gotta go in the red, and then, and if you really do need to transfer money, then you.
Yeah, well, that has to go in front of the council.
Correct.
So when talking about like the year-to-year budgeting and then trying, the budget board's discussion, trying to shift away from that year-to-year budgeting, like this $10,000 for Camp Shepherd, okay, maybe it wasn't used, but there's improvements in the future, there's structures on that, like that $10,000. Like for me, I wouldn't want to not appropriate money even though it was $265 last year, because we want to start building something to do with the Camp Shepherd property. But if there's structures that are deteriorating on there, docks, I guess, that are not safe, so.
Show me a
something like
plan
that.
though. The key thing is, I want to understand, like, great, we want to do improvements there. First of all, are they capital improvements or just general operational improvements? But we need to have a plan for our tax dollars. So if we want to invest and do a certain program for a year, let's understand and present to the budget board the program that we're looking to execute for on the year. We want to carve out new trails. Okay, great, what's the funding or what's the quote look like to do that? Or we want to rehab a building, what's that look like? So, versus just creating a general bucket and saying, we're gonna do whatever we wanna do out of it, let's have an actual plan for the properties.
Yeah.
And that statement goes back to the old, I'm gonna keep bringing that back to Overbrook. We need to understand what we're doing with that property before we invest in it.
And to go back to your question, Councilwoman, it's exactly what I just said a few seconds ago. What I think, it's not fair to Gene and Public Works to absorb projects that are outside of Public Works, if you get where I'm going in terms of that. I think we gotta start thinking, as Ian is sort of alluding to, that the camps and maybe some of the parks have to go into their own line item, so that we can see what we're investing in Camp Shepherd, into, I don't wanna use the court thing. But that's what we need to do, so we get the true cost of what that infrastructure is costing us, and not part of an operational budget, like snow removal, things of that nature.
I have just a question for the town manager. The historic storms that we've had, I know there was federal funds that were gonna be out.
We haven't been.
Right. How much did we put into that? Do you know?
I don't remember the number, I believe for the period that they were covering, it was somewhere around $45,000 to $60,000, somewhere in that range. I know our EMA director submitted all the paperwork, but,
Yeah, we
yeah,
haven't got an answer.
yeah, because they haven't, the feds, remember they closed down for a while, and they still have not done a declaration for any part of Rhode Island on reimbursement.
Thank you.
Moving on to Department 43, Public Works. This one is hydrant services and streetlights. This was left as requested. Department 44, refuse and recycling and landfill. This one was left as requested. Department 45, Public Works Parks. There were a few modifications to this one. And we actually went back and forth on this one a little bit. We had cut some of the line items, and through some of the different meetings, we added items back into it. One of the larger primary changes, there was a new line item to start funding a Boyle Field Reserve Fund. We know this is something that's important to do. There's a cliff coming up 10 years down the line. This isn't the year to start funding it. We know we're gonna need to start funding it, but this year, the $25,000 request, which is completely logical, it's just not the right year to start. In a year where we have, again, I pointed out earlier, an $800,000 new spend related to the property that we purchased, this $25,000 has to get cut. Within some of the others, there are a couple of changes for historic spend items, but nothing else particularly noteworthy here. Any questions on the Parks Department? All right, moving on to within the capital request for that department, the budget board, I gotta get to the tab here. The budget board left everything as requested by the town manager. The key is to utilize impact funds. So we have specific to parks, we have our impact fees that are available. The majority that we're recommending are to utilize the impact fees for these. Things like the parking lot expansions at Deerfield Park, playground equipment, anywhere we're legally able to use impact fees. This will significantly draw down that particular impact fee fund, but it's available there.
We approved to pay for a study of our impact fees, something like that.
It's in process now.
Do you know when that's gonna come back? Maybe we can get something.
Yeah, so Greg's working with them, and is supposed to meet with us to get a flavor of it, and then they're gonna do a presentation with the town council. I know it's gonna be coming up in the next couple of months, as long as they're on schedule.
All right, Department 48, Recreation. So as you know, a few years back, Parks and Rec were split to Parks going over to Public Works and Recreation being its own department. A couple of the primary changes in this were reductions to historic spend and even actually some other further reductions for being conservative in some spend. So recreation supplies and equipment was reduced down to $15,000. That is a reduction to the historic spend there. A few percent difference from historic spend. The summer recreation camp was level funded versus the requested increase. And that is the bulk of the modification to that department. Does anyone have any questions on recreation? All right, we're gonna go a little quick through the next grouping of departments because we're getting into the different boards and commissions and trusts. So jump in where you see fit. Within this one, as we get into some of the lines and some of the departments, within the boards, there's a line item for like the recording secretary for attending meetings, taking the minutes. In a lot of cases, those were left the same. Some they were reduced to spend, some they were increased. As when we get into the budget board, we know that the traditional line item for that was low versus what we actually need. One of the recommendations as we go into next year is going to be to take all of the recording secretary spend and move it into an individual account out of the individual departments. That way we can more accurately see and draw down from a larger fund versus several smaller recording funds. So Department 49, the land trust. Within this one, there was a significant reduction to the request. Property management was reduced from the $7,900 request to $1,500. $1,500 is in line with most of the historic spend. Now FY26 is above the historic spend, but we need to pull back in some of these areas. Department 51, the planning board, was reduced for the training aspect as well as for office supplies. This one is a unique department where office supplies has had very little historic spend, $0, $40, but then this current fiscal year is up to $1,500. We know the planning board's been seeing a rampant growth and utilization, so we brought that to $1,500 for the new recommendation. From a prior year of literally zero. But we want to try to have some constraint and restraint within that department. Department 52, the zoning board, saw a reduction in advertising to historic spend levels, a growth over historic spend, knowing that, again, there's additional activity within that area, but not all the way to the request. Department 53, the Board of Canvassers, was left to the request. This one actually showed some, it's lumpy within the years. So some years it's higher or lower depending on if it's a voting year or not. So this explains the drastic increase year over year to the appropriation there. Department 54, the Conservation Commission, saw a slight pullback related to internet, heating and fuel, dues and conferences had a line item that hasn't been utilized. The larger item within this one was a reduction to the beautification program, more in line with historic spend. So $2,000 was requested for that. We brought it back to $1,000, which is in line with the fiscal 24 and fiscal 25 actual spends. Department 55, the Economic Development Commission, was reduced related to office supplies and the part-time support of that department. Department 57, Soil and Erosion Control. This is an example of the recording secretary spend. So we did reduce it a little bit as it hasn't been fully utilized year over year. And this is part of why we want to do something like bring all of this recording spend into one bucket versus have all of these sub-buckets out there. Because it'll give us more clarity and more flexibility in that. Department 59, the Board of Affordable Housing, was a $0 department again this year. Department 60, the Board of Assessment Review, was retained at the 600 recommendation. Department 61, other boards and commissions. We did see an increase in that, specific to the Budget and Financial Review Board. We know how often this board is meeting, and we know the actual spend related to this board. So it's an example of let's appropriate to what we know we're going to be utilizing. And again, we'll be looking to pull that into a single account in future years. I'm going to, as I said up front, bypass the school department. We're going to bring that one near the end of the conversation. The next few, for the the Greenville Public Library, we level funded the Greenville Public Library. Any questions? So I'll go a little slower at this one. Any questions on the library now? All right. Department 72, the East Smithfield Public Library was level funded again. Department 73, the East Smithfield Neighborhood Center. This one was a challenge because this is a growing department. So while this department existed in prior years, this year is kind of the true launch and growth of the department. So we have the building in place now. Looks great. I'm really excited to see what we're going to be able to do with it in the future. We did fund it, just not quite as much as the town manager had recommended. Again, it's a growing engagement, so we want to see how we grow into it and what the expenses look like in reality as we move into it. We also want to see what it will look like to monetize the facility as we move forward. So we know that went before the town council previously. Any questions on the East Smithfield Neighborhood Center? All right. Department 81, Town Aided Programs. This was one of our more contentious departments and provided a lot of talking points to the budget board. So for reference, Town Aided Programs is the funding and support of a dozen or so organizations and nonprofits, both in the community and state. The request was for $73,500 for the year. Part of the view of the board when it comes to the town aided programs is that there's been no feedback and oversight to the funding of this department and of each of the organizations in this department. Now, some of it you can see. You can see the output of the All Lit Up Parade. You can see some of the engagements we do, and they're great organizations. There's no one on this board that will not say that every one of these is deserving. But in a year where we have such tight challenges, we had to find a place to pull back, and this entire department was one that we pulled back on, bringing it down to zero funding. The recommendation of the budget board is that every one of these organizations, if they're looking for funding moving forward, we would like to see them come to the town council, make the request in a live meeting, and for there to be metrics and feedback related to the money that we're providing out to these organizations. Again, every one of them provides great services, but we want to understand what's the return on this funding to Smithfield residents.
Is this money, do we automatically provide this money, or do they send us requests?
Some of them send requests, others don't.
And to expand on what Ian said, this was a contentious conversation. There are great people in there. I would go one step further as I'm sitting here listening to you. I think what we should do as a town, obviously you 3, 5 have to make the decision, is to go through a true grant funding. In other words, maybe in December of the previous year, send out to these groups and say, do you want something? And let them state what they're going to use the money for. and then it could go through a process, go through us, go through whoever you want, and then we can allocate that money. You approve it, and then allocate the money. I think the impression I got, it may not be true, is we just wrote out checks in July 1st. Not to all, but to some, and there's really no feedback to way to make sure that it's being spent appropriately, and to be a little, homey here, that helps Smithfield. Not Woonsocket or not Warren or whatever. So
These are agencies that actually provide services to our residents, or it's not like just,
there's a few
it's
that
not
we
like
weren't
just
sure.
a charitable thing.
We weren't sure. I think somebody's got to look at that.
I think that makes a difference.
It does.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask, like, going through these, because there's like, I don't know, 20 on here, and I recognize the names of some being True, Smithfield, helping
Right.
organizations, but some of them I'm not even familiar with. And I don't know, you would know.
And that is exactly why we want this going in a more public setting to the town council. We want a representative of the organization to come and say, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we're looking for, and this is the return that we're going to provide to Smithfield residents. And the option of a grant and standing it up as a formal grant program is a fantastic idea that I would
Allocate
fully
X
support.
dollars, and then we go through a process, and as you said, let them justify how it helps Smithfield residents, our kids, our people.
With all due respect, that's a good idea, but you cut them now. Just hear me out.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
We haven't done that, but you cut them out. How can you sit here and tell me you're gonna cut Meals on Wheels to our seniors? How can you tell me you're gonna cut Tri-County when they do all that work for us? How can you tell me Well One for health purposes?
And that's the
We got a big problem come October, when all these people lose their, because a big beautiful bill, start losing their health care. We have a big problem.
And I have no problem putting it back in, we just didn't know.
No, listen,
Well,
really
but
did.
also part of the challenge too. So, President, you spoke to Well One. That's a $25 million a year nonprofit. They're doing great things.
That doesn't matter.
They have other revenue
They're
sources.
helping our residents, like Mike said. Meals on Wheels, help our residents.
Absolutely.
They don't help Woonsocket. You got the YMCA, they help our residents. But
Absolutely.
what I'm saying is, you cut them now to zero, and then you want to start another program a year from now, that's not right. You should fund them now, and we start a program moving forward.
We defunded, we don't know what those organizations do as a budget, but we're kicking that back to you guys.
Right.
You wanna put it back in, and that's great.
No,
But we cut it because we don't have data, and we don't know what they did.
Back to your Meals on Wheels, I'd like to know from them.
How many?
How many people in Smithfield do they deliver food to?
What's
I
that?
think that's a great,
Ask.
no, I don't mean now, I mean.
No,
for
but
the
I'm
future.
saying, for you guys to make that decision, if you didn't ask whoever who's in charge of that, what does Tri-County do? What does Meals on Wheels do? Did you do that? No.
So
With all due respect, it's not possible.
It didn't have to be.
Well, a direct statement that I received when I was inquiring about this entire category was, they get the funding because they had the funding and they always have had it and they will get it. So there's no accountability to serving the residents of Smithfield. That's what we're saying needs to exist, is accountability to Smithfield residents. I'm sure every one of them provides great services and great items to Smithfield residents. We want to make sure that it's reported on. I want an annual report. If we're giving you $22,000, if we're giving you $10,000 or $12,000, I want a report to say, what did you do with Smithfield's taxpayers' money?
I agree with you, but you don't cut them to zero
Well,
until you do the program.
there is a problem with that, because do you fund them all, or do you fund some of them, or fund none of them?
Well, you fund them all, this group here, you fund them all this year, okay? Moving forward, that's when you start the program. If you don't like what ABC company does, well, then you don't fund them. But you just can't cut their legs out from under, especially Meals on Wheels.
We're asking them to come
Mortifying.
to you to request what you feel
Oh,
the
we're
town
gonna put it
council
back, I
needs.
can guarantee you that. But what I'm saying is,
We did not talk at any point.
Right.
no, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, you say you want to start a program, but you cut everybody in the beginning without starting the program. You should start the program after you say, you give them all notices. This is the last year you're gonna get this until we get X, Y, and Z. That's what I'm saying.
Or how about a suggestion? How about we start the program now? We wanna allocate the money, I have no problem with that, and say, we'll give it to you in January if you submit, you know, we can start it now.
Well, I mean,
Council President.
obviously, that's up to the council to do
Right,
that, but,
you can make that decision.
Right.
You just make a recommendation.
That's all we did.
because you have to do it in an ordinance anyway. because-
Yeah, I think
And $500.
We're meeting in-
VFWs need to go out.
Right,
We
right,
talked about
exactly.
that.
we have to make a
So
decision.
we weren't gonna pick and choose.
I agree with you, I agree with you, but you can't cut them all and then say you want to start a program. That's why I'm saying.
We won't disagree.
But that was the process and which led you to this.
Right. Yeah, we have to make a decision on this in 7 days. It's not gonna give them enough time to.
While you have to, remember, at the same time, while you have to find $530,000 to,
Yeah.
I think you need to fund this, and Caitlin and I can look at it, but if that funding doesn't go through, Smith Appleby House will be closed down for the year.
right, and the board, the budget board was not in a place to pick and choose organizations.
It was
I-
kind of an all or nothing.
Right.
And that's what Ian's saying, and with all due respect to the council, we have enough to do in that few months. We're not employees. You know, we didn't want to pick and choose. We just didn't. My dad's a veteran. That one would have been hard for me too, just as Peter said. I know. And so, we just didn't want to say 300 for this and then get rid of
But I
it.
think it did what we wanted it to do, generate this
Discussion.
conversation. And say, okay, well, this organization's been on this list forever, and we have no idea where that money goes. This organization's excellent, but, so, absolutely. But that's why we came, that's why we did.
And the important thing to remember is, this money that we're giving to these organizations is from the taxpayers. So we want to have, like, transparency to the taxpayers of where their tax dollars are going and how they're benefiting from this spend. And giving to a $32 million organization like Gateway Healthcare is, or a $25 million organization like Well One is, why are we sending our tax dollars to these organizations? They provide benefits, no questions. But we need to identify where's the best spend of our taxpayers' dollars. And again, this is for you to determine as you go up. As you discuss it and you decide what to vote on.
But you can't compare Meals on Wheels with Gateway Healthcare because
Correct.
Or a VFW.
Right.
so by them coming and saying, this is what we'd like to have, and this is what we're using, and have them give you data, we're more than glad to fund it. We're not saying it shouldn't be funded. We're saying that it should be documented.
Who's that one, that?
What's that?
Who's that one, that?
I'm glad we created
Transparency would be good.
That's what we wanted.
All right, any other questions on the town aided programs? All right, moving forward, Department 90, which is municipal debt. There's nothing for the budget board to discuss or modify on this one. Department 93, the water supply, is as an enterprise fund. We do not modify, we pass through and approve whatever is requested.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Really quick on this, because I don't think you were there at the meeting. We all saw the presentation to the Tide Review a couple of weeks ago. So I kind of want to put on the public record that that infrastructure is 1978, if I remember correctly. Here's another fiscal cliff, and that's not going to be a small bond issue. I don't know how much this stuff costs, but I don't know if it's a ticking time bomb or not. I'm not an engineer. That's somebody else to figure out. But that's a problem. 1978, if that water system goes down, we're gonna have to rush to do something, or it needs major renovations. We need to worry about that, and one more subject I'll talk about.
Department 94, Sewer Authority, again, as an enterprise fund, no modifications made. Department 95, the ice rink, same topic. And that brings us to the Department 70, which is the school department. That's the last of the departments that we have.
Before we do that, I
Some
misspoke.
applications on ice rink, sorry.
No,
No, it's fine. Okay.
It's an enterprise fund, so we
Yeah,
don't
just
touch
wasn't
it.
sure if you-
I misspoke, it wasn't water, it was sewer,
Yeah.
so I apologize.
Yeah.
I do want to bring out one subject that Councilwoman brought up about 6 months ago, I'm glad you did. And this is one of the things I'm going to be pushing, evidently the municipal court,
Oh,
okay?
oh, you're in
is under-
favor of it now.
No, I didn't say that.
That's what I like to hear, Ken.
No, the current municipal court, which we have, is underwater. Okay, so something's going on, I'm gonna be pushing to have that be its own line item. We are in negative, we are not receiving the fines that are being written up by people. I don't
Not
know,
even billing.
well, and you're absolutely right,
We're
Councilman
paying our
President,
judge
because
20 grand.
find it in here. So we should have,
That is a project.
that is a project that's worth looking for. We can't solve it, you're gonna have to solve it, why we are not going after these people who've been duly written up and then go to the court and let the judge decide. You know, with all due respect, we're gonna start potentially another court, we can't even work the one we have now. So we need to be a little more dutiful on this, and I just wanted to bring that up, because I didn't even know it, because you can't find it in numbers.
We're gonna put a jail down the Overbrook.
Well, I just put it at 2 Williams Road, sorry.
All right, moving on to Department 70, the school department. So we already discussed the capital side for the 1.3 million down to the 800,000. As we all know with the school department, we don't do a line-by-line recommendation. We look at the total funding for the school department. In this case, the local appropriation recommendation was a 2.82% increase in the operating, which was $973,409. This was 1.28% less than what the school had requested. Now, it's fortunate. They had a lot of credit to the superintendent. She made a lot of changes, and she's able to reduce what was needed and make this work. Reductions in this start experiencing further impacts to the school system. So this is one personally, and as a recommendation for myself, this is kind of the bare minimum that we need to do with the school department. There is the potential for further state aid. We don't know where that's coming in at yet. And the challenge with state aid, what?
140
Just passed.
Oh, just
Excellent. Nice and early for them.
Yeah,
They were waiting for us. Superintendent, you get a text on that?
I have not, that's actually,
But what this also does do is it makes up for the fact that they did need that 4% for the different curriculum and the change that they need. In my analysis, one of the challenges is year over year, the school department has had a higher percentage of their budget be state aid. That gets very dangerous and introduces a lot of risk for the town because state aid is not guaranteed or committed year over year, or even within the year. The state can and has, within a fiscal year, claw back money. And in the case that the state does that, the higher percent the state aid is, the more risk there is for Smithfield. The school department's already operating with very, very tight controls. There's not a lot of cuts to be made there. I would actually argue there's no cuts to be made. With the increased state aid being about 25% of the school's operating funding this coming year, especially with this additional increase, that puts Smithfield at a lot of risk. If you go back a decade, it was 16%. So the town has leaned on the state for a higher and higher percentage of its educational funding, where a lot of people say, oh, an unfunded state mandate for the schools, an unfunded mandate. The state funds it. They give us the money for it. We need to be careful to use the state's funding for the state mandates and not neglect the local appropriation portion of it. Another interesting stat as we go through it, the school department in the last decade has also gone from being over 40% of the town's budget to I lost my number here. Where was my number on this one? Oh, I lost the number.
It's on the sheet, well, I didn't give you one because you were talking. It's on the sheet that I just.
The local appropriation went from 43.8% down to 35.4%. So as the town's budget, overall budget has continued to grow, the school's percentage of it is being reduced. It's shrinking. So go ahead.
That's not clear, and I didn't, and I apologize, I didn't have as much time today as I thought. On page 1 of what I just handed you out, and I didn't want to interrupt
It's okay.
you. I have 10 different expenditure items, and all I did was do the town appropriation. I don't worry about the other stuff. So it's as of 2025, it was 49 out of 90. Okay, that's right off this sheet. So I don't know where the numbers are coming from. You guys know that I love numbers too much sometimes. I made a passion speech last week. I hope people thought I was someone on the money, but I have it all here. It's all on this.
Be careful in what number you're looking at. You're looking at the school's total. That's
I understand.
inclusive of state aid.
Right.
So if you're looking at the town's contribution, you have to look at the
Understood.
local appropriation as it relates to the town, not including the state
Well,
appropriation.
I have that too. If you look on page 3, I was ready. Because I'm looking at the CAFR, so it's showing everything. It's 34 for 2025, and the total budget was 92. So whatever that percentage is. But there's one more item that we have to, two more items that we have to talk about. There's one. I know this number is.
That's 37.4%, by the way. I have it in a spreadsheet that I made in front of me.
There's two numbers that are really important here. State aid, except for COVID year, which I don't understand what happened, but the state aid that came in, I have the numbers right from the CAFR. The lowest number was minus 18% from the previous year. That was 2020. I don't know what happened. It was obviously an anomaly. The next year was minus 2.6. If you take out the anomaly from COVID year, the 2020, the average year over year is 10.4% increase. Okay, I have it. It's right here. And
There were actually 2 years that state aid reduced. It was fiscal 2020 and 2021.
What I just said, all right? I know there's this other issue, and I understand the two sides of the street. And I made that impassioned discussion a couple of days ago. But I also did an analysis of, and I just gave a copy to the superintendent. It's printed out, unfortunately. But I did look at the appropriation. So out of 21 years, I did a 21-year analysis of the town's appropriation. 5 years was flat. 1 year was between 0 and 1. 3 was in the ones, 1%. 2 was in the 2s. 6 were in the 3s. And 4 were above 4%. Again, I want to totally fund education. That's what my profession is. But there's been a lot of numbers being thrown out. These are the numbers, if I made a mistake, tell me. Because I typed in over 500 numbers in the last 2 days. I'm kind of tired of typing. We just got to understand where we are. And I know a couple of school committee people called me. What have I said to them? I'm not going to out them. I said, you find the money. We'll figure it out. There's just not a lot of money to give, okay? I don't know where to get it. You can't, as my dad used to say, God bless his soul, you can't get blood out of a rock. You know, and we have a state cap, unless you guys want to go and ask for a cap increase, which I know you're not, and I would not suggest you do that. Well, you're probably right, probably right. We've got to figure it out, but there's only so much we can do, and I guess our businesses, and I don't know where the levy is, because Chris is not here, I don't know, Bob. I have
We have the levy right now?
Well, I know we can only change it on re-eval years, and if I remember correctly, we're at the maximum we can do under state law, correct? We can't readjust it. If it was this year, we can't readjust it, I understand.
The levy that, so,
No, the portionment of the levy.
oh, no.
Right, commercial and residential.
Well,
We're at the
we
max.
have a separate legislative bill that we passed last year to allow us to change that a little bit.
The mixture.
Yes, compromise.
Yeah, and I don't understand it, I'm not a levy expert, but I remember Chris saying last year, or whenever we did the last reval, we redid the deck chairs, and we moved a little bit more to the commercial side, which hurts the businesses.
We did, but last year the residential and the condo got hit really hard because of the revow.
Oh, yeah.
And that hurt last year. It was,
There are a lot of people.
and it wasn't balanced off with the commercial.
There are things we have very little control over, very, very little control over.
So how much of the school budget that was requested, are you recommending funded?
So,
What percentage and what's the
well,
number?
so they requested 4%, we're at 2.82%.
An increase?
To the operating, yes.
Well, the appropriation.
Yeah, it's to the local
The
appropriation.
local appropriation.
They
transfer.
made adjustments since their original, we made adjustments, we had a meeting a few weeks ago. And we were funding, at that point, budget board recommended funding everything except for 29,000.
It was actually 29,999, it was just shy of 30,000.
Right.
And that's
So
reflective of
30,000.
this number.
Right, and so if you get another 140,000 from the state, 148 from the state,
Right.
you're gonna be happy, right?
Well, yes, we will, so again, if the town council, respectfully approves the recommendation, is that before you for the school department, that additional state aid, if that is, again, not reduced out of our local appropriation, will cover the 30,000 that we were short as of last week after making a lot of changes. I have that in my formal statement, but, we've really worked closely to look at enrollment, transportation, but benefits you saw last week, right? We went up, we thought we were gonna be starting at a certain working rate for medical benefits. We got the number is actually higher, so that number kept changing. We have it back down. We looked at staffing, and then we looked at transportation. And so we were at that $30,000 shortfall of what's currently on the table right now. With the 148, that does cover the 30,000, but we received our statewide transportation numbers based on, what we were working with compared to what was in our budget and what they just gave us our numbers on. We are actually $40,000 short in what we have budgeted for statewide transportation to cover those expenses. So there's another 40,000 that 148 would cover. So that 148 is very quickly going to cover these items. That additional amount from statewide transportation is on our special ed transportation costs, our homeless transportation costs, our CTE transportation costs. All of those, numbers are increasing. And they're having the same, transportation conversations across the state. And it is an expensive line item. So we're seeing that impacting us everywhere. So that is really going quickly. And again, I can't emphasize enough, we have, one other little thing that potentially comes up, and we are going to be over budget before we even start. So I'm respectfully requesting, we've made a lot of cuts. I kept you all up to date on that throughout the whole process, and really have worked. It's interesting, we started with what the school committee approved as our budget for revenue at the 48.9 million is what we thought we were gonna get, and that's what, we were asking for, and that was what our expenditures. At this point now, we are down to our expenditures being almost $300,000, $400,000 less than what we thought we were going to be. We started with a difference between what we originally asked compared to the town manager's budget proposal of an $882,000 difference. That's where we started back in March. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. That's where we started. And as we've gone through this process, what the Budget Finance Review Board is proposing brings us down with a $408,000, less than what we were originally asking in the school committee's approved budget of 4% ask.
with the work we've done since then, we have brought that $408,000 gap down to $30,000. And then now we've added another 40 that was beyond our control this week. So if you can imagine, coming from an $882,000 gap from where we started this process. Now, don't get me wrong, we are making cuts, besides all of the other pieces. We have teachers that are not, potentially coming back. We have other costs that we can't add. We need math interventionists, we need professional learning money. That all adds up. We need classrooms. You heard passionately from these teachers at other meetings. This does not account for new furniture, new science lab, all the things that we need to be competitive. This is really keeping status quo and not bringing in the additional things that we had in our original ask at even 4%, but really where we started back in January was, realistically, we need 5.5%, 6% if you really want to be competitive to what other districts are providing to, the same demographic of students. So I feel like we've made a really concerted effort to get to where we are, and so I can't, again, very passionate but respectfully ask that please do not go below what the budget review board. I thank you guys for all of your time putting that information together and diving deeply. I hear what the town is really struggling with, but we're getting very close to, just squeaking by, and I feel like we've done an extraordinary job in making those cuts and coming back again and again, being transparent to try to do our part to be fiscally responsible to the town.
You good?
That does wrap up the department. Probably the last kind of statement here is the budget board worked really hard to deliver a balanced budget. So this is the first year that the proposal and ideally the execution as it's followed, minus the changes we saw today, do not draw down the town's savings account, the reserve fund. We're really proud of that. That's a lot of work, and there's a lot of danger to drawing our reserve fund down below where it is as it sits. It's already at kind of a minimum threshold that puts us at risk for our bond rating to take a hit, especially as we look to fund the fire station that's being built. I wish you luck as you move forward here. We are here to consult with you. So, we know that there's a big target here that we still need to address. You have my time. And I'm to speak for every other member of this board, you have our time to help you work through this. We've got 1 week for you to pass the budget and to approve it next week. So, whatever you need for an analysis, we want to make sure that whatever happens a week from today is a known entity, that it's not a surprise as we go up on the stage, and that all aspects of the budget have been reviewed and kind of the impact of any particular change is understood ahead of time.
Just to add, I'm sorry. I've said this before to you, you are a breath of fresh air. I absolutely mean that. I think almost everybody around this table has been around a while, and have been. This wasn't the kind of dialogue, I guess I'll use a nice word, that happened. On our last day, and that was a 4.5-hour meeting, I don't think I got dinner that night, you cut $800 and some odd thousand. I have the spreadsheet. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my career, at least when I've been involved in budgets. And it was tough, and I understand how everybody feels here on this table. I want to make sure every kid gets educated. I have a reason. I see them upstream. But I appreciate you going through, and I hope everybody at this table heard what you said, what painstaking process like we went through. We both went through it. The only difference is you get paid and we get water, that's all. But I appreciate it, I do, and I think my colleagues, especially after hearing you.
At least from the council's perspective, I think I can speak for the three of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know it's a lot of work. You know, we have decisions to be made. And I want to go to what Ken said. You know, I've been around for 16 years, and this is the first year we've really had communication with the school department, and truthfulness out of the school department. I'm good. I'm good. So, I think, you know, moving forward, you know, my parents used to say, all good things, you know, when something bad happens, all good things come around. And that's what happened. You know, things happen, we get a new superintendent that communicated, that worked with the town manager, that worked with the budget, worked with us, and I think that's a telling sign. So thank you for what you did. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that really made the difference this year. I think it was an extraordinary effort by the school department, the school committee, all involved, and especially the budget board. I mean, we spent hours, I spent a lot of time with them, hours and hours and hours, very long meetings, to try to get this right. And most importantly this year, is to balance the budget, because for many years, we've been living off our savings account, the general fund. And we can't go on like that, because we're gonna lose our bond rating. It puts the town in big jeopardy. So we really have to, you know, start looking at the spending. And I think this was a very thorough job by the budget board this year to try to get spending, you know, under control. And I just hope the people of the town appreciate the big debt of gratitude that we owe each and one of them. These are volunteers, they don't get paid. They volunteer their time because they want to make a better town. And I can't tell them how much we appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment too, and I think you did an amazing job trying to find ways to save money, even put it on hold for temporary. But the reserve fund has been tapped in for the last 5 or 6 years, and we just had to make a change. We're like a big ship, and you just can't, we have to steer it in the right direction. You're not going to make a complete turn, but we need to go in the right direction and not tapping into our reserve funds and have responsible budgets from all the department heads. And with that said, we have a lot of equity in this town that we have to look at to try to raise revenue, such as maybe splitting up Camp Shepherd or the sale of Dame School that's been going on for years. I'm sure that increased in value too. So also we need some vision on how to create revenue and also cut costs to try to create a balanced budget.
Thank you. At the risk of repeating what everyone said, the budget board, you all did so amazing with this budget. I'm very impressed, and we're so grateful to have you all as volunteers on this budget in particular. Madam Superintendent, your work does not go unnoticed. Thank you very much for your communication, support, and the work session that we did a couple weeks ago was very eye-opening to me specifically. I know we don't go line by line, but you did it anyway for us, and it helps us better understand kind of the inner workings of the school department, which is much different than what we deal with on a daily basis. So I thank you for that open door policy that you have, which is amazing. I do have a few questions for the chair, but I'll wait until. So we have this 530,000 kind of looming over us. The budget is pretty much perfect otherwise. Or as perfect as it can be.
It's $530,000.
No big deal, yeah. If my priorities were to keep the balanced budget with that $530,000 added back in, were to add the town aided programs back in, you know, with the caveat that the president mentioned of the program, whatever. Maintain all the capital, school capital specifically, I think is a big priority for me, at a minimum of 800. What would the board recommend to fund that 530 plus that 71?
Can I have your sheet of paper, please? Thank you, Brandon.
I'm assuming the road paving is a part of it, and
So,
the Camp Shepherd debt service.
yes.
Is that enough?
So,
Take all the road paving.
I really appreciate what Brandon's been working on the side here. So, yes, the Camp Shepherd and the lawsuit, between the two of them, we can save or reduce $55,000 in spend. So that reduction, and then basically at that point, the rest comes out of highway resurfacing. Now, this is me speaking without having consulted with the rest of the board at this point. So this would be my direct recommendation. However, I have 6 other peers who I have not discussed this with at this point. So that would be my target. Now, one thing to keep in mind is there is that potential for the federal funds to come back to the town, the roughly 45 to 60,000 that we were talking about. That could, in theory, go back to highway resurfacing. So that could help offset some of that reduction. Or is that,
No, it has to
No,
be
it's a
allocated to the
reimbursement.
expense.
Yeah,
Okay.
So it has to
reimbursable,
be
the
reimbursement.
expense.
But that being said,
but that, it goes back to general fund at that point, because the expenses already happened.
Is there any?
that being said, I think we're pretty close on selling Windsor School. Or both. Maybe this far.
Sean, you're in.
I almost said Cook School, and that would be really bad.
You better check with your doctor when next visit. Make sure you get it right. But, I mean, there's things that that are in the pipeline. Things are in the pipeline.
The challenge you have, though, is regardless of what's in the pipeline, we have a target of next week. So if something sells in a month or 2 months from now, it's not part of this approved and finalized budget. So we have to work with what we have existing. Now, that can provide some bandwidth and leeway later on. I mean, getting something off of our books and maybe even better onto our tax revenue is a bonus, and it'd be great to see. My personal recommendation as this budget sits, with that $535,000 deficit, and wanting to add if you wanted to add the full town aided programs back in, the biggest area to pull on would be highway resurfacing. You could look at some of the overtime allocations. We did increase like the fire overtime. I would caution that be careful there, because we know the spend is happening. So taking out of it, you're just going to run into an area where you run over a budget, or very likely run over budget in that area. So there aren't a lot of other areas to pull.
What about the fertilization? That was pretty high this year.
That was, we were strongly guided against modifying the fertilization.
Well, it's accurate?
Yeah.
From other board members, is there anything else that you can think of that could be reduced to cover that shortfall? I know you already went through it 10 times.
Are you not gonna like release this after today? Like, we can go out and other things? But I don't wanna answer that question first. President, I get what you're saying. Be very, very careful of converting assets to operating. Bond agencies will look at it, okay? And I understand there will be $1 million that comes in, whatever, I don't wanna say it, but that's fiscal 101, that's finance 101, okay? They will see that, okay, because it's obviously gonna come out of the fund balance. I have the fund balance numbers. So just be careful of doing that. It's done, and I get it, but it looks very desperate when we do that. We gotta try to figure out, unless you're not gonna release this, we gotta try to figure out where to come up with the $600 or so thousand dollars after we took 4 hours to get rid of $800,000.
Is that the only extent of the problem? That's my question, because we were looking at the CBA's effect on what pension and merit. Did we look at the salaries?
Well, that's.
Did we have an adequate amount of the salary? Oh, okay, so that was merit.
Yeah.
So that is the extent of the problem. That plus the town aided would be about
If you add those
600,000.
back.
Okay. And, League of Cities and Towns, what they sent, I mean, you're right, it looks like we're not getting anything except for plus the school money, but, do you have other information that we're getting more money, or?
I
from the
thought I
state,
heard
or-
that, but
Yeah.
I don't,
I
whatever.
got 2 calls that said we were gonna get money, but again, no one.
but it's, we're not seeing it on paper.
And not
Until
stated.
it's in, it's
What,
not in.
Caleb, what was the pilot this year, 25% or 27? It's going to 27, but,
Yeah, I think it might have been predicted at 25 or.
yeah, so they went from, pilot payments from the state went up 2%, so it's not a lot.
Do you know what the number is, Bob, the 2% is? Yeah,
I don't know, it's a big number, I don't have the number.
I,
We
well,
got-
do you wanna know the total amount we're getting for,
Sure, 'cause
the
I-
pilot?
Well, or the incremental at that point, because we already addressed the prior.
Oh, I don't know if there's gonna be a difference,
Oh,
but
okay.
what was budgeted from the state was 1,802,349.
So this is general pilot relief for tax exempt properties, like Providence gets for the hospitals.
Correct,
and-
yeah, the airport,
The airport.
Bryant,
Understand.
some other
To pay
properties,
back the state
the
properties.
DPW garage that they have and that kind of stuff. So here's, Caitlin and I gotta go through and check all the numbers, and then with the tax assessor as well, to make sure we get everything correct, so when we get all of the, when we do the resolution for everything, we gotta make sure that's all correct. I guess my question is, I know you can't vote on it, but is the 148 gonna go to the schools 100%? Because we need to take that into consideration when we check all our numbers. And if we make a big swing Tuesday night, our numbers are gonna be off. So
I'm not speaking for the other two.
no, I'm just saying, I know you can't vote on it, but just keep in mind, if we had some idea where you're gonna go with that, it's gonna be easier for us to verify all our numbers.
Well, if it's state school, if it's state aid to the schools, then yes, it would have to go, it's part of the state aid category for the schools.
Well, he's asking if that would reduce our appropriation.
I would strongly recommend against it.
That was just the
It-
question.
That's what we need to know.
That was just the question.
Well, it could, because if we do that, we might have gave them less, so they have to decide that question.
So when you get the final numbers tomorrow, we voted on the budget. The numbers will be tomorrow.
Right.
Then make a phone call to every one of us.
I think the school budget is always a moving target. Because, and I learned a lot about it this year because of the programs that the school department ran about special ed. And the town council president wrote a great editorial about state mandates. And I think state mandates cause the budget to be a moving target. Usually it moves up because of that. And it's more than, what's anticipated. So I'd be very reluctant to tap into the extra state aid, because I think as the superintendent said, that's gonna be eaten up very quickly, with some of
With
the mandates, because we don't know, like, what we're gonna have for presentation, special ed, what things parents are gonna demand, or want, or need, for all these state mandated programs.
So as a point of reference, I personally have over 200 hours looking at this budget in the last few months here. I would strongly counsel against reducing the local appropriation in response to any incremental state aid. It would be not in the best interest of the town or of the schools or the kids in the community. It would not be good for the long term. You might buy yourself a little bit here, but it's going to have some severe downstream consequences.
And I would add, it's only about a quarter, give or take, of what we're trying to reduce. I know there's been a lot of friction between, I talked about a lot, between both sides of the farm and fight. I don't think it's a good idea. And quite frankly, and again, I'll say it again, I don't think, after all the work they've done to move the deck chairs around, I think would be very disingenuous. I really, really do. And,
Right, all I'm asking for, I need a consensus so I can poll you tomorrow. That's all, I don't need, we just need a consensus so we can check all our numbers. We gotta make sure all our numbers are correct. And, so.
You want to go around the table with us? I don't know.
Well, that-
I have no plans in using that state aid for anyone but the schools.
Okay, but
That's not
you
something-
can't make that decision
Well, you
tonight.
have to wait on first.
We can't vote.
But that's, I'm just saying that's my plan.
Yeah,
I have no
and
plan.
that's fine, we just need to know where to go so we can check all the
So
numbers.
when you get the numbers tomorrow, you guys can hold that off.
It's not that much money, and it'll do much more good, I think, in the school department. I do have one other question regarding capital. Madam Superintendent, can you please remind me the two capital item values that were not being funded out of this budget? Was the, like, science equipment, right?
Sure, we had a $1.3 million ask
Yep.
combined. $800,000 of that was for actual school, like
The dollars,
capital
yep.
to do renovations as part of our stage 2 application. The other $500,000 was for technology, so to continue to replace old devices, and as new students come in, we have a process of kids get the, a new device when they get to high school, for example. So it was technology, science kits, the startup to purchase all of the new science kits as a requirement as part of our science curriculum to have high quality curriculum materials. And then there were textbooks for civics and world language. So it was textbooks, curriculum materials for science and technology.
And of that 500,000, I'm sorry, I'm quizzing you, do you remember the breakdown of each item? What's the cheapest item on there, is I guess my question.
Well, I mean, an individual item, was about $20,000 for civics textbooks.
Okay.
That was probably the cheapest item.
What's the next cheapest?
The world language textbooks, I think, was, $40,000. I'm trying to go off the top of my head.
Yeah.
The science kits were about 180. Did you have
I'm
it?
sorry, yeah, I didn't say.
160. Richard,
I know you
show me
gave me
Now-
this packet the other day, and I don't have it.
Yeah, sorry.
Now,
Thank you,
those
Richard. I
textbooks-
have 20 other documents with me, and I did not bring this one.
Now, for clarity, those
Richard is
textbooks
the
are
capital-
the better part of a decade old, correct?
Excellent. I'm sorry?
The existing textbooks are the better part of a decade old, correct?
World language needs new textbooks. The civics textbooks are actually a new ask because we now have that requirement as part of the secondary regulations to have students take civics. So yes, and then the science kits are very old. That was at $160,000.
So it's 160 for the kits,
160 for the kids,
20 for books, 40 for books?
31 for books, 31,000 combined for books, and then 309,000 for technology.
Okay, thank you.
So we are still short, as you call it,
Yes.
the capital is 800,000. We're still in a shortfall, and we'll have to tap in, but we will be at zero in our capital fund.
But I
I
don't,
understand. And the reason I'm asking this question is because I'm wondering, as from the budget board, I know you went through all the capital, is there capital money that could be moved to fund this capital from other departments that's discretionary capital?
Between so basically what's in the town's capital.
Correct.
um,
To the school.
After the funding of the capital items in this year for the town itself, even the town is getting very low in the capital reserve.
But that 35,000 for the town hall that was asked for, that was not appropriated, that went somewhere else in the town, that didn't go, or that just wasn't used at all?
It was just
It was
cut.
just cut, it didn't go across, I understand, okay.
And Caitlin, I don't remember the number, but we were down within 100,000 or 200,000 in the town's capital fund.
Okay, still, even, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
if a partial amount, Superintendent, those, where that $800,000 is going, those projects aren't gonna be ready to go this next fiscal year. We haven't even put anything together for them. So if that came down a little and matched it next year to keep building that up, because we got more money coming in as well on the capital.
We should be getting more housing aid from the field project.
Correct,
I'm sorry,
right.
not the field projects, the projects that we did last summer, the renovations to the IC room and the culinary room.
Right.
There should be some money, we don't know
We don't
what that
know.
is and when it'll arrive. And then I passed that part over to Richard and Jessica, because they were here with the capital project before I got here. But there are some projects, I guess in theory, that we could punt to the following year, but there's also the requirement of the school building authority at RIDE to be maintaining these projects as part of our agreement, and that's why we get some of the aid back, and so there are many ready to go, we are ready to go.
Yeah, but I mean, in phase two, I don't think we gotta get all the drawings done, the architectural work, go out to bid and all that stuff, so that's the important part, to make sure we can cover that, the 500,000.
But part of the phase two required a commitment on the town to fund the 800,000.
I know, but it's not gonna spend the money until.
That
But you still have to
will be,
appropriate.
that will be worked on this year, and here's the problem, if you punt it down. Now you add another whole layer next year, so you're playing catch up, you know?
It is just
So it has to
kicking
be
the
done.
can down.
Yeah.
I-
And what they are, they're bathrooms, and they can be shut down during a school year part, you know, if we're not working on every single one of them, they can be worked on. It's not like, something where you know, like when we did the culinary center, we had to do that when there were no kids there because we, you know, pulling asbestos out and things like that. But here, there's other bathrooms in the building, so.
So we had done the proper planning through the phases to ensure that we could spend the dollars this year, this fiscal year.
I know, but
coming
you're
up.
not gonna spend the dollars physically this year because you don't have enough time. You will never have the whole project ready to go and pay for the whole thing because all the architectural, all the,
Before June
nothing's done yet.
30th of 2027, before June 30th of 2027.
Yeah, but you gotta go out to bid, you gotta,
We understand all that, we're on target for all of that.
Right. And then these requirements aren't as tough as they were for the prior one because of the dollar amounts we're using. The state doesn't have the same requirement.
And that was the purpose of all of our phased planning that we've done over the past year, to make sure we would be in place.
One of the biggest uncertainties is overtime. We spent a lot of discussion on overtime. We raised it from like 200 to how much? 800?
600.
Okay, so, I mean, we could try to hold the line on that, and take a little out of that, and that would bring some of it down.
The problem is, Chris, so take that down and have a net deficit is gonna get you to the same place. I understand.
We don't
what
know
you're saying.
what overtime will do. It's not a certain figure, because it depends on the model, it depends on what goes on.
I understand.
And we raised it 4 times the amount, which is quite a lot.
Unless you change what's causing it, then.
Now, I have a lot of faith in Chief Keen with his revised staffing plan.
Good. That's the difference. Right, that's the difference.
We'll start public comment. There's 12 people that signed up. Ms. Tibbetts?
Good evening. My name is Arla Tibbetts, and I am a freshman at Smithfield High School. I'm also the new Trian Youth Honor Society treasurer. I am standing here today on behalf of the student body, the music department, and on behalf of our lovely instrumental teacher, Mrs. Fernandez. The date was May 5th, 2026. It was last period on a Tuesday, and we were in band. Mrs. Fernandez starts teaching, taught up, students ready to learn. Instead of instrumental melodies being echoed in beauty, there is one ring at the phone. She picks it up and her pupils shrink. She puts it down and she tells us someone is coming to cover our class. She leaves the room. Some of us had a brief idea of what might happen, but it wasn't for sure. While she was in the principal's office that day, she got completely shattered. They expected her to piece herself back together and consume herself with gold and head back to class. She really tried. A couple of seniors and I analyzed the situation. We had understood what happened. So we stayed after the bell to console her, to talk to her, to let her feel the feels. The second her words left the mouth, they laid me off. I almost burst into tears. Since that day, we spent every waking moment in mourning. Not just sadness over our instrumental teacher, but true grief as if we'd lost a loved one because we have. We've lost a solid music program. As someone with so many instrumental needs, I need someone to go to for last-minute instrumental help. Without a band teacher, all of us are losing that. For the first time ever, I actually considered looking into other schools. As someone who devotedly loves Smithfield, as someone who has always done everything I could to help, and everything I have that I could ever want is here, I am now missing the one thing I need. But just imagine, if students that love it here consider leaving, then what's happening to everyone else? We talked about numbers earlier, and the main thing that our school system is focusing on right now is increasing attendance rates, graduation rates, and standardized test scores. According to the National Association of Music Education, schools with better developed music programs have graduation rates higher by 18%, better attendance by 9%, and on average scores 50 points higher in each section of the SATs. By helping us, you are helping yourself. Our school will suffer immensely if this program is finished. Without Mrs. Fernandez, the students in the ISE room won't be able to have their unified music class. Those students only leave the room for lunch, gym, and music. And you would not believe how essential music is for their development. Without Mrs. Fernandez, Mr. Caramonte would take over the whole department. As much as I love Mr. Caramonte, he is such an amazing chorus teacher, and I hope, he stays with us for a while. He's just such a great guy. But he is not an instrumentalist. He is a chorus teacher, not a band teacher. Having him teach band is like having a French teacher teach Spanish. It would be very difficult for him to manage the whole department on his own. Without Mrs. Fernandez, our academic abilities would be poor. Without Mrs. Fernandez, the mental and social stability of each student in this department is at stake. We never had 1.6 music teachers, we had a chorus teacher and a phenomenal band teacher. A teacher with half a job is a whole person and a whole teacher nonetheless. Art is the heart of our school. Keep that heart beating. Thank you for your time.
Can I have your name, please?
Karen again.
Did you sign up?
Arlo wanted me to speak with them.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure.
Good evening, everyone. Like I said, my name is Kiara Laguerre. I'm a sophomore at Smithfield High School. I have 3 siblings. All of us have gone to the Smithfield school system, and we know one of the teachers in this room right now. And as such, we have seen many classes, events, and teachers come and go. While we come on behalf of the music department, in special respects to the layoff of Ms. Michaela Fernandez, the music teacher, the laying off of multiple teachers in the school system impacts all of us. Take it from us, the students of SHS highly value each and every member of the staff and faculty, and each layoff will have unimaginably detrimental effects. I'd like to keep this short, so I want to begin with the things that I've seen personally in Smithfield High School. When the layoff news began circulating through SHS, the responses were immediate and they were similar. I can't believe this is happening, or I'm going to miss Miss Fernandez, or Miss Allen, or Miss Skena, or I feel so awful. Miss Allen in particular holds a special place in my heart, who's also getting laid off. She was my first high school English teacher, and she worked with me a lot in creative writing, which is something I still pursue to this day. I and many other students cannot imagine our high school careers without these teachers. This, however, is only the tip of the iceberg. At our age, students require stability, guidance, and consistency in their day-to-day lives, especially with their education. Our peers cannot and will not succeed without the teachers who love and who they love and who support them. At an age where dependence on artificial intelligence and extraneous sources of knowledge are rampant, our teachers must exist as pillars for our students. In conclusion, my friends and I urge you to push for a solution. The fact that we've all run here from cabaret rehearsal, which for all of your reference, the show's on June 18th, the show's at 6 and 8, please come. To speak to you before this evening proves that the music department and all the departments at the school mean the world to us. In prioritizing our teachers, you prioritize your students, and you prioritize our futures. Thank you.
My name is Eloise. I'm also a sophomore at Smithfield High School, and I wanted to bring forward a few of the effects that I think would result from these budget cuts that are happening at our school. And first of all, it's going to greatly impact student performance, which I know is something that Smithfield High School works toward. For example, a class that I wanted to take next year is AP Lang, but that class was cut because Miss Allen's job is threatened, and she is the only one that could teach that class. And I was just in a meeting with my school, with my guidance counselor, talking about my schedule, and there were so many classes that are higher level classes, such as APs or EEPs or honors classes, that I can't take because it doesn't fit in my schedule because of the teachers who are being laid off. Also, the classes will be bigger, and with bigger classes, there will be less one-on-one teaching for students, and a lot of students require that one-on-one teaching to excel in their classes. Grades and morale will decrease, which is going to hurt our student body and hurt Smithfield High School. It's also, I'm so sorry. It's also hurting student morale and student attendance, which is another big issue at SHS. Like Kiara said, as soon as I heard the news, I heard kids saying, oh, what's the point of even coming to school? Why should I come if I can't take this class? And another thing is that it will hurt the students from out of district who want to come to our school. I remember I learned that each student brings in about like $17,000 to the school if they're out of district. And if our school doesn't offer interesting classes that students can take that people will be interested in, then less students will come in, which will mean that we have even less money, which will just keep going in this terrible cycle. So I hope you take these things into consideration, and I hope you do all you can to ensure that no teacher at SHS gets laid off for the betterment of the school and the students. Thank you.
Mr. Martin.
Good evening. My name is David Martin, 7 Grandview Drive. I've been a Smithfield teacher for 31 years. I'm the president of the Teachers Association for the past 4 years, and I've been a resident in Smithfield since 1991. I respectfully urge the town council to support our budget financial reviews with recommended school budget without any reductions to the town's appropriation for the school department. It is imperative that the budget be funded as proposed. For many years, increases in state education aid have often been offset by reduction in the town's contribution. While this practice may balance the budget on paper, it prevents our schools from making meaningful improvements. Instead, the district is left simply trying to keep pace with contractual obligations, state and federal mandates, raising operational costs, and the educational needs of our children. The proposed budget is not excessive. It is a responsible budget that allows the district to maintain some of the most important educational programs, meet obligations, and continue to provide quality education for the Smithfield family that Smithfield families expect and deserve. As we look to the future, we must also be addressing the growing capital needs of our aging school facilities. Both Smithfield High and our middle school require significant structural repairs and improvements. We cannot continue to postpone these investments and push them further down the road. Establishing a financial plan that sets aside capital funding for these necessary repairs will help protect our facilities, support our students, and save our taxpayers from even greater costs in the future. I respectfully ask that you fully support the Budget Financial Review Board's recommendations and maintain the town's appropriation for the school department as proposed. Thank you for your time.
Diane?
Good evening. My name is Diane Dietrich. I stand before you tonight as a graduate of this district, a teacher for 29 years in this town, and as the vice president of NEA Smithfield. Like all of you in this room, I'm here because I care deeply about this town, and I'm here because I see every single day the human cost of the decisions made at these meetings on the students in our classrooms. While I respect the complexity of the budgetary process and the value of all municipal departments, I'm not here to focus on ledgers and line items. I'm here to speak to our bare bones reality and serve as an advocate and voice for our students and staff. For years, the school department has been stretched thin by a cumulative cycle of minimal funding increases that simply do not keep pace with rising costs and mandates. We have become experts at working magic with limited resources, but the magic has run out. We are no longer trimming fat, we are cutting into the very muscle of our students' educational experience. And every teacher and educator in this room, notice the sea of red, who is here tonight, can attest to the significant needs in our schools. When we underfund our schools, we face devastating choices. We choose between hiring enough support staff and interventionists to address the rising behavioral and academic needs, or leaving our students unsupported. We choose between maintaining safe, clean, updated facilities where our children can learn or watch them deteriorate. We choose between modernizing our technology and curriculums, or watching our classrooms fall behind our neighboring districts. Every time we suppress our investment in schools, especially by redirecting state aid to offset local responsibilities, we are making a long-term withdrawal from the future of Smithfield. We all know that a strong school system is the heartbeat of a community. It drives property values, it attracts families, and most importantly, it prepares the next generation of citizens and leaders. Let's be clear, the school department's budget does not ask for luxuries. It simply asks for the capacity to provide a consistent, high-quality, and safe environment for every child who walks through our doors. I urge this town council to uphold the recommended town appropriation submitted to you by the Budget Financial Review Board and the additional full amount afforded to us in the state aid. I ask you to view this not as an expenditure to be minimized, but as a vital investment in our future. Our students deserve more than a bare bones experience. They deserve a school system that allows them to thrive, not just exist. They deserve a system that offers educational choices, one that is competitive and responsive to their needs. Thank you all for your time, commitment, and service to our town.
Carrie Howell.
Hi. Switching the topic to libraries now. I'm Corey. I'm Corey Alves. I am a town resident and I became the director of the Greenville Library about a year ago. And I've spent the year getting to know the budget. I've been at a lot of these meetings, but I haven't spoken until now. So the libraries are asking for a modest 3% increase, both libraries. That is necessary just to keep up with inflation and rising costs so that we can keep providing the services that are valued in the town. Obviously, we know that town budgets are not, taxpayer budgets aren't infinite, and that the library does need to be transparent and about our use of taxpayer dollars. I am disappointed that we did try to reach out to the BFRB so that we could have a voice.
Who did you try to reach out to?
We talked to our liaisons, which were Caitlin and Bob Seltzer. We offered statistics. We inquired if you wanted to hear from us. And we were told no, there were no questions or concerns. And no one did approach either library. The libraries should have a voice.
I did try to make contact with Greenville multiple times.
Okay, this year you did because
I was assigned to you.
I have been very responsive to other town departments that have reached out. So I certainly don't have any record of that, and I would have responded if there had been an effort to reach out. So I never got the message, and I don't believe East Smithfield did either. So I hope that next year we can have some better communication. And I do respectfully ask for the 3% budget from the town council because the libraries need that and should have a voice in the process. Thank you.
Retired teacher Jane Ramos.
Still has another week, you know, she's not retired yet.
James, should we tell the audience about your dad and my dad? They played baseball together. Back a long time ago.
My cousin.
Yeah.
My cousin, and then my dad went on to play the minor leagues and the Cardinals.
So it's better than my dad. Your dad's better than me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm Jane Ramos. I live at Eisenhower Drive. I've spoken before. I'm going to repeat just a few things because I think they bear repeating. My family did move to Smithfield in 1956. I graduated from Smithfield High School in 1983, Lynn too. And I started teaching in Smithfield in 1989, and now I'm ready to retire. But just as a background, since my parents had moved to the town, it was 1966 that we got a new high school, 1967, new elementary school, La Perche was new then, 1976 we got the new junior high, and made Old County have a couple of elementary schools put in. all those things were booming in the 60s and 70s. And since then, 40, 50 years later, no new buildings. What we've had to do instead is add on and renovate. And I've said before, I think what's been happening for a long time is that we're learning to do more with less. So what this means is our buildings are aging, they're in need of repairs. I can speak specifically to the middle school that the elevator has been broken for a year and a half. I know it's gonna get addressed, but it's changed the way we've had to do things in the building. We've lost diverse programming at our middle school. We don't have shop and we don't have home ec, and foreign language program has changed. Programming at the high school is going to change. We're responding to changes in the budget by doing more with less. We try to do more, we try to continue to do what we need to do, but it's really difficult. All might look good from the outside. When you tour our schools and take a peek and look at what the kids are doing, they're engaged and it looks good. But when you really look closely and when you talk to teachers, there's a lot that needs to be done. It breaks my heart to see that other districts have been committing to those really tough, difficult decisions and the economic and the budgetary decisions they have to make. It's been happening in other districts, and they've been building new schools, and they've been adding new programs. But in Smithfield, we've been not able to do that. And I do see changes in Smithfield's performance on tests in our state, our lack of resources, the lack of supports we have in our schools. It's taking its toll. Smithfield has lost its edge to some degree. Our superintendent can't be any clearer about what needs to be done with our budget. We have to continue to support and do what is needed. It's tough, there are tough times, yes, but all those years of that little bit of funding has put us, in our operational budget, has put us where we're at now. And I hope we have no other choice but to go up from where we are. It's been pretty detrimental. We can see the effects, and we hope it doesn't get any worse. Thank you.
Mary Ann Iannucci.
Hi, good evening. I'm Mary Ann Iannucci. I live in Smithfield, Rhode Island. I am on the board of the Greenville Public Library, and I'm here to support both East Smithfield Library and Greenville Public Library. During these challenging times with rising costs of living, utilities, gas, food, rent, etc., our Smithfield families can still use our libraries for little cost. They can read a book, they can watch a movie, attend classes and programs on gardening, music, culture, computer literacy, astronomy, and bring their children to a story hour. Most services are free or for a very small fee. Please give our libraries the 3% increase requested. How can our libraries provide these services after years of level funding? It's our turn now. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you. I'm not going to go through my prepared statement. I said most of what I needed to say earlier when you asked me the questions. I just want to, thank the school committee for their support in trying to get us to be where we are, and all of you at the time you put in to all of this work. It's not easy. You hear everybody, with their situation, and they're tough decisions. They really are, and I just, again, respectfully continue to reiterate and ask that you do, in fact, add that additional state aid. It should be just viewed as an opportunity to offset all of these rising costs, and I can't emphasize that enough. We will continue to do what we can to find ways, but as you've heard, this really is, keeping it level to where we were with as little disruption, but it is not adding on. This is not a budget that has any bells or whistles, no additional programming. There's still needs. We still have a lot of student needs, We went through that list at the beginning of this process. We have not been close to touching any of those, but it is the hope that we could continue to work on those as we go through the years coming up, that if we could continue having some level funding that is able to keep up with the cost of what needs to happen, we truly appreciate it. And I appreciate all of your support, the compliments this evening as well, and your support. It truly is a pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to be the superintendent. Thank you.
School Committee Member Sala?
Good evening, Jess Sala, 182 Rocky Hill Road, Vice Chair of the School Committee. I'm here tonight to strongly encourage the Town Council to accept the recommendation of the Financial Review Board and fund the school district at the highest level possible. I understand that doing so may require difficult decisions and reductions in other areas of the municipal budget. No one is suggesting these choices are easy. However, if we truly want our town to remain strong, attractive to families, financially healthy, then education must be treated as a priority investment and not an afterthought. When school budgets are reduced or underfunded, as they have been for the past 7 years, and I will pause and cite the data that you referenced. I understand that maybe some years there were 5 or 4, 3%. The past 7 have not been that way, and that's a long time. And I understand that we may have better communication, and why I am very thrilled that our superintendent is here. You cannot blame everything on a lack of communication. You have to take accountability for the way the council has voted for the past 7 years. The consequences are felt directly in our classrooms. We have larger class sizes, fewer opportunities for individualized student support, and reductions in specialized programming that help students with varying academic needs. We see delays in implementing mandated curriculum changes, deploying the latest technologies, and causing our district to fall behind neighboring communities that are adequately funding their schools. We see deferred maintenance and capital improvements that only become more expensive with time, and ultimately, we see dedicated educators and staff asking to constantly do more with less. The ripple effects of those decisions every year corner our community. Strong schools support strong property values. Strong schools attract families and businesses. Strong schools produce graduates who want to stay in this town and raise their families. Conversely, repeatedly underfunding our budget creates challenges that compound over time and become increasingly difficult and costly to correct. I'd like to take a moment to address President Tassoni directly. Mr. President, it has become increasingly difficult to reconcile your public statements with your voting record. While you present yourself on social media as a champion of our teachers, schools, district employees, and bus drivers, when the vote carries real consequences, the support seems to differ. If anyone needs an example, they can look no further than your August 2024 post, when during active teacher contract negotiations, you publicly posted, and I quote, "Smithfield teachers need a fair contract ASAP." Yet just 2 months before that, you voted no to the modest budget with no explanation whatsoever. What makes that contradiction even more concerning is that when I asked you earlier this year to explain that vote during a public meeting, rather than providing an answer, you deflected the question with a question of your own. When I pressed further, you stated that you couldn't remember what you ate for breakfast. Respectfully, that response is difficult to accept when discussing a vote that impacted the education of thousands of students, the livelihoods of our educators and staff, and the direction of our school district. Residents deserve more than slogans and sound bites. They deserve accountability and an honest explanation for decisions that have real consequences for our community. I'm not sure if you understand how we agreed on our fair contract, but fair contracts require fair compensation, and fair compensation requires adequate funding. The budget is not separate from the contract discussion. It is quite literally the foundation of it. There is another, even more recent example that raises similar concerns. During the May 19th Town Council meeting, while addressing members of the bus driving community, President Tassoni, you stated that the council could do nothing other than accept the budget and describe the transportation contract process as a shady deal under the cloak of darkness. Those are serious claims that suggest unanswered questions and significant concerns about the process. Yet just 1 week later, during the May 27th budget review session between the Town Council and the school committee, the transportation budget was discussed in detail. At that meeting, I specifically stopped the discussion twice and asked you whether you had any questions regarding transportation. Both times you responded that you did not. If there were legitimate concerns about the transportation budget or the contract process, that was the appropriate public forum to raise them, to ask questions and seek answers. Instead, the opportunity passed without a single question being asked. So tonight, I ask you to move beyond your political grandstanding. Stop using community concerns and district hardships as political talking points while failing to support the funding necessary to address them. If you genuinely support our teachers, our schools, our students, and our bus drivers, show them when it matters most with your vote. Put the taxpayers' money where your mouth is. Support the recommendation before you. Fund our district at a level that allows us to provide the bare minimum of education that our students deserve, and allows us to offer our staff fair contracts, allows us to make long overdue capital improvements that our schools so desperately need. Our students get one chance at their education. Let's not shortchange their future.
President, Chairman, you're up.
She stole my notes. Rich Donatelli, Chairman of the School Committee, 919 Avenue. First of all, before anything, I really want to thank the Budget and Financial Review Board. This was a very unique year. Just a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, you spent extra hours making sure that the revenue projections were accurate and that what you put together is a good product. So, having said that, and also, we see other towns and cities in the state with problems. I mean, Warwick, Franklin, things like that. Some of them because they have improper expenditures listed, others because they're improper revenues. So this is not a minor subject over here. I do also wish that the town council takes up their budget suggestions 100%. Last week when we had our meeting with the town council, I talked about what the town appropriation was and what it had been over the years, at small amounts. This week, I'm going to talk about the state appropriations, and Mrs. Souza already pointed out a number of these, and I got the 4 right here that are over 4% or 8% or whatever number it is. You can't be taking that money that the state gives us to fund education and use it for something else. It has got to go towards education. That makes sense. You can't complain about state mandates if you're taking that state money and using it for something else. It's got to allow us to utilize it to improve our education. I am glad the students came tonight because that's an actual face on what some of the cuts and some of the problems that we need to fix. They spoke at our meeting a couple of times, and I get their point. Because I sang in the choir, and they are right that a instrumental music teacher, although has the same certification as a choral teacher, they are really different disciplines. And the choral people and the instrumentalists, you need the person to do that. So that's very important. The other thing is, I spoke last week about a couple of our ideas if we are able to get more money from the state. Now, first of all, at that point, we were about $30,000 down. That's a big gap, as the superintendent already said, going from 880 down to about 30,000, and that's because of some of the adjustments that we made. It's also because of some of the funds that the budget board made. Now we have another 40,000, so that brings us up to 70,000 that we have to make up. We get 148,000 from the state, take 70 out, so we'll have about 78,000. I told you last week that what we were hoping is any of that money we'd be able to utilize for something like a math interventionist or maybe call back a teacher. Okay. That 78 is a little tight to do both of those, but I can guarantee you we are still going to be looking for savings in the school department. Because that job does not end after tonight or after next week. We still will be looking at that. So with those, we hope we can bring that back. A math interventionist, right across the board, everybody recognizes the importance of that. And talk about state mandates, math is a state mandate. Not only is it, that's a course, keep in mind they are now requiring students in high school to get 3 levels of math, all the way up to algebra 2. And since math is a cumulative subject, in 2nd grade and you're having a hard time, in 3rd grade it's not going to get better automatically because you change the classroom. And And that's where the interventionist comes in, helps the teachers with strategies and things like that. So I really hope that you will do that and follow that entirely. I think that's all. There were some questions about the capital. Now, the 800,000 plus the 529 we have right now in our budget, okay? And 145,000 of that is spoken for, because that's coming for the middle school elevator. Brings us down to 1,184,000. So that's $116,000 short of our 1.3 ask. I probably make the superintendent nervous. I think we can deal with that, and we can get some of these jobs done. We push things off into future years. Remember, all those things have an escalation cost in there, and it's 4% is what they were using last time. So really don't want to do that. So having said that, I please hope that you will follow the recommendation entirely for both capital and operating. Thank you.
Mr. DeMayo.
Ed DeMayo, 75 Whittle Road. I'll try to talk a little about it. As I'm listening to everybody speaking out of it, my head spins, as you can see, emotions, isn't it? I think that in the previous years, the town councils previously leaned too heavily on the town council president previously. And I think the decisions, as I heard, when they were given money for, what do you call that, the food that goes out, Meals on Wheels, maybe they were just given flat money. And as Ian said, Ken said, and everybody said, yeah, we want, as President Trump said, yeah, we're gonna not disqualify Meals on Wheels and the other programs. Again, I'll reiterate, bring us your spreadsheet, how many people are getting the meals, times per days. I think with computers, it should be a simple thing. And now, instead of just saying, here's money, like maybe previous, 13 years of previous town council, or town managers, I'm sorry, ran it, just said, here, flat fees. And I'm just saying, thank God for this new town council, Caitlin, Ken, and the chief, and Ian, and the transparency, what we need to put the ducks in order, instead of just saying, how much you need? Oh, here you go, here you go. No, bring us how many people, and I think the other one was the 31 mil to another fund there, or 32 mil to well one, I don't know what that is. But I'm hoping that when they come and ask for the money, you don't hand it to them first. Bring us your paperwork. That's your job. And like Ken said, are you appreciating having this money to help the people, not that it's given to you and, oh, it's just given to us. And a few things that I wrote down. I know I shake my head when I hear figures. How do you figure in the middle school, of course you need a well, but 145,000? I'm missing something, I know, I'm missing the times, I know. But I think that certain, not here, I know the president council say, we don't control that. But the words, tweaking words like prevailing wage, or as like Ken said, caps, those words have to be looked at closer, and like President Song said, October, we might see something, who knows, maybe more earthquakes that happen all over the world. I mean, things that can happen. But I think that these people here, everyone here, is really trying to do a great job to save, my opinion, the greatest town in Rhode Island. And I'd like to just give kudos to everybody, and I I believe that the chief and Caitlin are really, and everybody here, but are really, and I don't know everything. I don't know what the schools do. I don't know what they need. They say 3. That's negotiable. I don't know, maybe 1.5. I don't know how it works. That's everybody's thing, what they need. Maybe there is, and then the cafeteria, I heard someone say 800,000. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not gonna say, to repaint or whatever they're gonna do. I'm saying, where do they get this figure for a field? I do recall one thing last year. They put the field in the field, but you don't put, I don't think the chief would let it happen this time. You put your sprinklers in later, after the sod and the grass is in? That's just saying to the town, so, I guess I hope I made some sense.
Thank you.
Barbara,
It's okay,
Walgrave?
you can try. I'm getting there.
Take your time.
You may not realize it, but you're probably all looking out and saying, oh my God, there's a room of elementarists. This we're all going more. However, I'm here for the library. My name is Barbara Bourgeois, 11 Eisenhower Drive, Smithfield. If I have a neighbor here. Growing up, I didn't use the library at all. Lower middle class family, both parents working, didn't have time to take us to the library. One car family, we considered ourselves lucky. When I started having children, taking them to the library was so exciting for all of us. And I realized I don't have to have money to enjoy this. And that's who we serve. We serve the underprivileged, and you have heard that several times tonight. So I'm just asking for that 3% increase, because you know everything's going up. Books have a shelf life, and we call that a shelf life. They're on the shelf, and they don't have a very long life. So they have to be replaced. Both libraries are doing so much programming and amazing things for people who can't afford to go anywhere. East Smithfield Public Library is on the bus route. People can't drive there. A lot of them don't have cars. Please consider and don't underestimate the value of a library. Thank you.
Hi, Melissa Maroney, 1 East Prospect Street. I'm here in support of the schools always, but tonight I'm here as the president of the Board of Trustees of the East Smithfield Public Library. The East Smithfield Public Library and the Greenville Public Library provide services to our town that go beyond lending books. As we look at the significant cuts presented tonight, now more than ever, the services that we provide are vital. The libraries of Smithfield have established programs in place to support our community members in these challenging times. We work with many of the partners that you have adjusted the funding to assure that all of our town citizens are supported in good times and in tough times. One of the biggest organizations in this town that we support is the Smithfield Public Schools. It's a necessary liaison, the libraries and the school system. We work together on so many projects. By cutting our budget, it's cutting the ability for us to support the school system and the community. As Barbara mentioned, the Greenville Public Library and the East Smithfield Public Library provide drastically different services beyond lending books. We're located in the lowest socioeconomic neighborhood in our town. We're on the public bus line. We're within walking distance of the only Title I school in our district. We provide services to our community that they cannot find somewhere else. By cutting our budgets, we already have the smallest part of the budget in a whole, as a whole. Our budget is so tiny compared to other budgets that you've discussed tonight. And when you're removing that percentage from what we're already facing as a small part of the pot, it's devastating to the programs that we provide. The small amount of the budget that is allocated to the libraries is stretched to do the most good. We are a collaboration. East Smithfield and Greenville are a collaboration to offer these services town-wide. So we implore you to consider reinstating the budget that we requested so that our programming can continue to support the people of this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank everybody who comes out, stuff like that. It's very nice when everybody voices their opinion on something they need to do and have being done. And I also want to thank living in this town, my life, the school department has afforded priced my house to go up. The children walk around in my street very respectful. There's no crime in my street. So the school department, I feel, is responsible for that. And I want to say thank you for letting me live here for that. That's what I know. And I lived here for 30 years. I've gone other places and the kids are animals and they're just crying all over the place. The value of the house. If the school department goes down, the housing prices will go down like there's no tomorrow. So I just want to say thank you for keeping me rich. Also, so they can have some money, I have an idea, a suggestion for those 3 lots on Cowell Road. I believe I could get them personally sold to you for $900,000 tomorrow. I'll have a check for you. Or
I have to talk to them about it.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, I also made some money by going up to Bryan College and asking them to chip in with all the money they're making. They haven't made a deposit or done anything in the years to come. They owe big time for us. There's another maybe $250,000 right there that somebody should put a strong arm to these people. They're making all kinds of money and stuff like that. Another position where you can make some money, the Manio Farm. That's not doing anything over there. We can't even use it. Another company uses it, leases it for $2 a week. They're making, let's say, $50,000 a year on that. I suggest we tax them more on the lease and get a percentage of what the material that they're selling coming out of there. It's only fair. We are paying for the building, we're paying for the property. At least charge a fair rate for the farm use and get a percentage of what that farm is getting out of there. These are just simple money ideas that I could come up with, just batting my eyelashes in this town. There's a lot of ways to make some money in this town, and that way we could get the $300,000 here and stuff like that. So, if we put our heads together, we can't keep everything. I'd like to keep the town, my little cowboy hat on there, but we need the money, so let's sell that property on Cowell Road. And we'll keep the Camp Shepherd, but the little lots on there, they can get $350,000 a pop for them lots. So they're not gonna hurt anything, get tax money out of here. Do stuff like that, it'd be very easy. And I'd also make another suggestion that I know we're fighting at the LMI. The LMI are bringing too many school kids into this thing, it's overflowing the school system for them. So we gotta figure out how to correct the LMI situation. Form a committee maybe, to see how we can get it done correctly with the housing and something like that. Because all these things is what's gonna kill this town. And I wanna thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank?
Good evening. My name's Frank Baracchione. I live at 3 Wall. Oh, sorry. I live at 3 Laurel Hill Drive, in Smithfield, been a resident since I was about 5 years old. Did have a little brief time that I did live out of town. But as a member of this community, I have become a teacher. I have become somebody who is truly vested in this town. My dad comes here practically every day now. He loves it. The program that's here is perfect for him. But we need this for our schools. Smithfield Public Schools produced great, everlasting memories for people like me. Board, John, you're a product as well. Your family, your daughter, everything. Memories that have made me who I am today. Okay. As a history teacher, we're going to go down memory lane. Sorry, I'm not going to sit here and say, you do this, that. I want you guys to understand that the dedication of all my teachers growing up had pointed me in a direction to become a teacher first, a coach, a valued member of the community, town Smithfield. Whether it was on the football field with Coach Dunn, or on the ice with Coach Woolybridge. I learned, and I grew, and I enjoyed my youth. That list goes on. The memories I have, I share them with my son, any chance I get. I know those of you on the town council have some of the same types of memories that I have. We are, and still are, part of something very special in this town. Let's keep it going. I am not here to beg or for money. I'm here to have you take a second. Think about how Smithfield Public Schools helped and guided you in life and where you are today as a result of it. The hard work that all these people in red do daily. Okay? If the school budget gets cut or loses funding, we're taking away the future opportunities in life for the kids. Okay? I'm on the back nine of my career. Okay, I got about 10, 11 years left. But these kids who are coming here now, their future can be endless. And it starts here in the schools. It starts here at Deerfield Park. It starts here in this town. The more that is cut, the less opportunities our kids have. The opportunities to make memories. I asked that we explore, as a community, ways to increase the funding for the schools in the future, as well as obviously this year, but let's sit down and look at what we need and what we can do. We have so much that is needed and so much for our future generations that's needed. I ask that each of you take a few moments and think of those moments that made you who you are, that shaped your life to be what it is today, the opportunities that you had as a result of everybody here, everybody you may have had, previous teachers, etc. I would like to take the opportunity to thank each of you here for the work that you do, that you continue to do, and to thank Smithfield Public Schools, okay, libraries, everything. It is amazing what this town has to offer. Let's keep it going. And I truly appreciate the time that you gave me tonight, and I truly appreciate the work that you guys do.
Anyone else that signed up, anyone else like to speak?
President, I just got one thing I forgot to say.
You're gonna have to wait.
My name is Tom Grusgar. I would like to support, and do you need the spelling of my last name? Gruczka.
He's responsible for those absolutely beautiful
I was just
trails.
about to say that.
Absolutely gorgeous trails that we have for mountain biking and hiking.
So I came up to support my Smithfield educators and to second all the comments that they have made about the importance of funding our schools, but also to put a face to the land trust budget. I am the person around town that takes care of the trails. I organize volunteers. I build all the walkways. I'm responsible for all the cedar walkways and also the opening of all the trails in Camp Shepherd. And I urge the council to continue supporting that so I can provide all the opportunities, and I think there's a lot that can be said for benefits to the town, benefits to the residents, reasons for people to come to Smithfield. And I think that all the open spaces and all the trails that we have provide a lot of value and are loved and cared for by the residents, and that should continue to be maintained.
Thank you, Tom, for your work.
Thank you.
About 75, one little thing that was, I heard, Alex say something about, Camp Shepherd, and my eyes lit up. It has to remain Camp Shepherd, in my opinion. There can't be no cutting up with Camp Shepherd. And I was also told, by someone at the next, planning board, I'm responsible for buying pizzas.
That's it? Pizza, that's it? Just pizza?
Next planning board.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
That was me.